81. Mirror Flow. Ino stared at the little fish for a moment, then let out a small breath of relief. The memory she could extract from it was still limited. Danshu must have studied congenital deficiencies more thoroughly, but as a major criminal, she'd be locked up in Cloudford prison. Getting information from her would be difficult. Still, there might be a way, if only General Jingyuan had the time. She decided not to wait. Using the space anchor beside Ruomu Pavilion, she teleported back to the entrance of Shensei Mansion. The moment she arrived, she felt the air was different. The Cloud Knights at the gate were peering into the courtyard with taut expressions. "Excuse me," Ino called. A guard startled at her voice and instinctively stepped back, only relaxing when he saw who it was. "Oh, Miss Ino, forgive my reaction. There's something happening inside Shensei Mansion. If you go in, please be very careful." Ino studied him. He's still on his feet and there aren't any signs of a struggle. Whatever's happened, it doesn't look like an attack. Never mind. As head of Shensei Mansion, he may not know the details. I'll go in and see. She passed through the gate and stopped. A blindfolded girl with long bluish-white hair stood in the hall, a sword in her right hand that seemed carved from frost. The blade's tip pointed to the floor, not threatening, just present. Standing at the front, directing the Cloud Knights, was a golden-haired youth Ino didn't recognize. It seems that even though I've been away from the Luofu for so long, the killing intent in this mansion hasn't diminished. That's gratifying. The blindfolded woman smiled faintly. She turned at the sound of Ino and called softly, "Miss Ino, be careful." Ino felt strangely calm, but she still glanced at Qingzu for information. Qingzu leaned close and murmured, "Miss Ino, this is Yangqing, the swift steed lieutenant. The woman before you is Lady Jingliu, former sword champion of Shanzhou Luofu, and once General Jingyuan's mentor. In her heyday, countless denizens of abundance fell to her blade. Wingweavers, feathered guards, Borisin alpha wolves, even mountain-sized automatons couldn't withstand her single strike. She was a legend. But years ago she was Mara-struck, went mad, slaughtered many, and became a major criminal who fled the outer domains. No one could capture her, until, for some reason, she returned to the Luofu disguised as a merchant to surrender and confess." Ino tilted her head. "Is she now Luocha's accomplice?" Jingliu chuckled. "As expected of a genius, you catch to the heart of it. My own account hardly paints me as objective or fair, but those deeds of centuries past? Compared to fighting the Lord of Destruction, they're nothing." Ino pressed on. "Then why is she here at Shensei Mansion now?" Qingzu answered. Before her confession, she made a condition, 1 day's freedom before the trial to meet old friends at Scale Gorge Waterscape. Astonishingly, General Jingyuan agreed. One of the tasks he left before he departed was to assign us to escort her during that last day on the Luofu. "So, I'm arriving at a bad time?" "No, you've come at just the right time." Jingliu turned to Ino. "I hope you can do me a favor. Contact Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune, or rather, Dan Heng now, and tell him to come quickly. He absolutely must not be absent from those accompanying me today." Before she finished speaking, a familiar figure appeared behind Ino. Jingliu smiled. "Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune, you didn't keep me waiting. Since you're here, why not step forward and reminisce?" Qingzu gave Dan Heng a quick wink. "Go on, Mr. Dan Heng. She specifically asked for you." Dan Heng's face tightened for a moment. He knew the newcomer was connected to his past life, to Dan Feng, and that trouble could come with that link. But Jingliu's manner felt more amiable than the blade-first hostility he'd expected, and with Ino present, he wasn't afraid she would lash out. He stepped forward. "When I left Xianzhou," Jingliu said with measured warmth, "they took your horn, forced you to molt, and imprisoned you in Cloudford. I thought Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune was finished. Yet to return to the Luofu and see you part the seas and summon tides again, it feels like a lifetime ago." Dan Heng answered, "The life of Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune is over. The person before you now is someone else." Jingliu's smile didn't fade. "I understand. Vidyadhara are reborn. Past karma and sins are meant to be washed clean. But can a person truly leave their past behind? If I'm not mistaken, the Dragon Elders didn't want the Dragon Vein line to die, and they engineered your molting punishment so Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune might be reborn. Whatever Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune did in the past wronged many people," she went on. Do you intend to seek justice on their behalf? He shrugged softly. I'm no judge. I'm a sinner myself. I returned to the Luofu to surrender to the Alliance and face my past. But before my trial, I asked for one day's reprieve, to see old friends and honor promises made when feelings were deep. Jing Yuan was understanding, and he consented when he learned you would attend. So that mysterious letter was from you, Ino said. Yes. Now that everyone is gathered, we can leave. I plan to revisit a few old places, offer a cup of wine, and reminisce. Yang Qing's brow tightened. He had lost some of his original arrogance after his clashes, but he'd gained composure. He saw clearly this journey was an escort mission. Do you think this is a holiday? He asked. I might be, Jingliu said lightly. Little brother, don't look so worried. I've surrendered to the Alliance. I won't flee. Besides, your general agreed to grant me this day. And Dan Heng, you must come. You accepted my letter, so you accepted my invitation. If you're still uneasy, Yang Qing added, glancing at the group, you can have her accompany us. Seeing Jingliu look at her, Ino blinked. Me? Me? If I were to fall into Mara struck simply from seeing things and thinking of people, and had to rely only on my little brother and Dan Heng imbibitor Lune, who cannot fully grasp the power of the Dragon Lord, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to hold me, Jingliu said. Apart from the real reason Luocha and I came here, you may ask me anything. Compared to you, Miss Ino, my only advantage is that I have lived longer, but I may not be able to give you satisfying answers. So many memories whirl in my head, yet I can't grasp them. After a Xianzhou native lives 1,000 years, each day feels like carrying a mountain, wandering through a maze. 1,000 years? How long have you actually lived? Ino asked. Is that your first question? Jingliu replied. I was born in Kongcheng, once the most prosperous city of the Xianzhou. In my youth, Kongcheng was swallowed by the fiendish star Rahu, becoming the third Xianzhou to perish after Yuanqiao and Daiyu. I was one of the few survivors. Jingliu suddenly looked at Yangqing. What year? Is it this year? Star calendar 8100, Yangqing said bluntly. If you can't even remember that, how can you guarantee the answers you give Miss Ino are accurate? Wait, so you finally noticed? Jingliu said with a bitter laugh. You're not entirely dull. The day Kangcheng perished was star calendar 6300. That means over 1,800 years have passed, as if in a blink. Yanqing's eyes widened. Big sister, you're over 1,800 years old? How is that possible? The average lifespan of a Xianzhou celestial is only about 800 years. After 1,000, the chance of falling into Marastruck increases because of the lifespan plague. Hey, I already said that, Jingliu replied dryly. Little brother, your current age is probably less than 1% of mine, so why are you so forgetful? Before Yangqing could retort, Jingliu's tone softened. But you're right, that I still live and can control myself to some degree is indeed a miracle. Seeing Ino still puzzled, Qingzu stepped in to explain. Miss Ino might not know this, but Xianzhou has long been plagued by Marastruck. The only feasible approach today is to remove the Danfu and replace it with an artificial one. However, doing that alters a person's personality drastically. They can only survive in an automaton body. You met one such automaton judge from the 10 Lords Commission on the Luofu. She's in exactly that situation. Back when Kangcheng fell 1,800 years ago, this technology wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now, and Master Jingliu hasn't undergone such modifications, so her current state is indeed miraculous. Oh, Ino absorbed that, her red eyes flickering. She glanced at the others with a look that said, Aren't we supposed to revisit old places? Why are we still at Shensei Mansion? Jingliu, indecisive, seemed to be weighing options aloud. Where should we start? Starwatcher Avenue first, or the Luofu Craftsman's Commission? Yangqing scowled at the indecision. It's just picking a place. Is it that hard? I'll pick. Let's go to Starwatcher Avenue. Haha, children have boundless energy. Very well, Jingliu said. They left Shensei Mansion, watched by a cluster of Cloud Knights, and set off on foot for Starwatcher Avenue. Yangqing's repeated assurances that the Cloud Knights were on a mission kept the crowd from pressing in on them. Once they arrived, Jingliu looked around, unsure what to expect. If you want to see starfaring vessels, you only need to look up at the Jade Gate. Why come all the way here? Little brother, have you heard of the Foxian pilot Baiheng? Dan Heng imbibitor Lune. If anything comes to mind, Speak up, Jingliu prompted. Dan Heng thought, riffling through fragmented memories. She seems to have been Dan Feng's comrade in arms. She was a comrade and a friend, Jingliu said. She was yours and ours. 700 years ago, Dan Heng Imbibiter Lune, Jing Yuan, Yingxing, Bai Heng, and I made up what was then called the High Cloud Quintet on the Luofu. Yangqing visibly surprised himself. The legendary High Cloud Quintet, whose names were famous across Xianzhou 700 years ago, was actually… Jingliu snorted. I didn't expect Jing Yuan to tell you these things. The High Cloud Quintet nowadays might not even be a flattering term. I never heard it from the general, Dan Heng admitted. I read about the High Cloud Quintet in books, but they didn't say who they were exactly. I remember seeing the name Bai Heng. You read? Jingliu's tone was amused. What are you saying? I don't usually read much, but during strategic training the general made me go through many ancient archives. I remember one called A Grand Tour of the Starfaring Seas, and the author was Bai Heng. That travelogue was hers, Jingliu confirmed. Dan Heng tried to remember. The book was written in a humorous tone. Most pages described her starfaring vessels crashing and the danger she ran into, with notes on local species and ecosystems. At the time I thought, someone whose ship crashes all the time, can she even be called a pilot? But then I realized she always somehow survived. That luck was astonishing. Jingliu's voice grew soft as she looked into the distance. Yes, her bad luck was astonishing. Whenever she piloted a ship into battle, she'd either be swallowed by some giant beast in the Abundance Follower or crash deep behind enemy lines. Few of the ships she commanded returned intact. The Skyfaring Commission secretly called her the Starfaring Vessel Killer. At the same time, the bad things she guessed, her cursed predictions, would come true 8 or 9 times out of 10. After a while, few Cloud Knights dared to travel with her. Yet when it came to staying alive, her luck was miraculously good. No matter how desperate the situation, she always turned misfortune into survival. What happened next? What happened to Senior Bai Heng? Eno asked. The books say the High Cloud Quintet upheld justice and slew the Abundance Abominations, but they never mention their end. 700 years ago, perhaps during the Shuohu War. Jingliu fell silent for a long moment before meeting Dan Heng's eyes. Yes, during the Shuohu War, that fool finally drew the last of the Emperor Bao's luck. She charged into the enemy lines alone, so alliance forces could break through Shu's blood-soaked purgatory realm. She even pulled you back from dragonkind madness. But she didn't make it out of that battlefield. We all owe her a debt that can never be repaid. For Cloud Knights, to be buried on the field is an honor, Jingliu continued, voice sharp. But Dan Heng Imbibiter Lune, you didn't understand that. In the moment she should have rested in peace, you used that miraculous dragonization technique and made a mistake, an irreparable one. Jingliu's agitation flared. Yanqing immediately summoned 6 flying swords into combat posture. Seeing that, Eno drew her own weapon, Erosion, ready on reflex. 83. My mission is completed. Of course, Jingliu didn't actually strike. When she realized the face before her didn't perfectly overlap Dan Feng's, her anger eased. Yanqing let out a long breath and retracted his flying sword. Don't worry, little brother. I walk the edge of Mara often, but when it's time to pay respects to an old friend, I won't fall into it. Pay respects, a Foxian memorial? Dan Heng asked. Yes, sending the star skiff representing the deceased up into the starry sky. I left in a rush back then and couldn't say goodbye. I still regret it. Before we left Luofu, I wanted to finish this properly. I know nothing about making star skiffs, only that they can be assembled here. I don't know either, Yangqing said, but if you find the starting position and input the right commands, the machine will start the vessel that nurtures a star skiff seed. It won't be long before another ship appears in the spaceport. It sounds like Eno must witness this ceremony, Jingliu said softly. They followed Yangqing to the assembly machine. A plump creature, an abundance believer, sized them up with a deceptively gentle look, then looked back at itself, as if asking whether it was really going to fight 4 people. A theatrical voiceover by Teacher Tom later, and Yangqing's flying sword cut it down. Yangqing inspected the control panel, cheeks flushing with mild embarrassment. Jingliu and Dan Heng sighed in perfect unison and shook their heads. Ino stepped forward and tapped the panel with her right index finger. Seconds later, the star skiff assembly line whirred to life. Yangqing bowed slightly to her. "Thank you, teacher. If you hadn't helped, I'd have made an even bigger fool of myself." "Teacher?" Ino murmured. "There's an old saying in Shanzhou, the able are teachers. Since Miss Ino is watched by the all-seeing Lord, she must be among the best at many things in this era." "Calling you teacher may be presumptuous," Yangqing added, flushed. Ino had no objection. Jinglu snorted lightly. "You're learning to flatter at a young age. Jingyuan taught you poorly." "Anyway," Yangqing said, "the assembly line started. The skiff will form and sail into the spaceport soon. Let's go wait." They reached the spaceport in time to see a new star skiff sit itself on the slipway. Jinglu set a wine pot and an elegant ornament on it, her emotions shifting again. "I brought your wine pot, Baiheng. It was carved for you by that person, but he couldn't give it to you. I'm sorry, I only found it recently. Returning it should let me sleep without nightmares for a little while. And what you asked me to do, I will do. Even if I must cut down the stars in the sky, I will not break my promise." Although Jinglu said I could ask her questions, given how she is now, she probably can't remember trivial things, and trying to force her to recall important ones would only risk pushing her toward Mara. It's better not to ask. They watched the star skiff float away until it was out of sight. "Let's go. Next stop, the Luofu Craftsman's Commission." They had not gone far down Starwatcher Avenue when a shout cut the air. "Stop!" Several skulkers turned at the voice and began whispering among themselves. Before Yangqing could react, two at the back bolted. The bodies of the men in front shifted, golden branches unfurling from their shoulders. Your abundance-possessed disciples of Sanctus Medicus," someone hissed. Ino didn't chase the runners. She looked to Dan Heng. "Leave one alive." "Understood." Dan Heng released Cloudpiercer, and the leader of the group was slammed against the wall. Jinglu and Yangqing closed in from either side and ended the skirmish almost instantly. "You are strong, but," the captured man croaked, "the Xuanjin Shijie has escaped. My mission is complete." A razor of cold sword chi pierced his voice. He stopped laughing. Ino approached calmly and rested her hand on the man's branching growths. "All Shijie are meant to go to a certain hallowed ground to guide the Xuan root and help it spread. Today, the leader was seized by the abundance believers. The plan had to change. You were to cooperate with the Xuanjin Shijie and keep lurking. When something changed, he'd lead the others to rescue the leader." She spoke slower now, speaking out what she drew from his mind. "Your mission. Cover the Xuanjin Shijie's evacuation from Starwatcher Avenue. The route. Continue until he reaches Building 54 on Street 114 of Xuanyuan Heaven. Eliminate abundance tyranny. Xianzhou belongs to the disciples of Sanctus Medicus," the man shouted, the old cult chant rattling in his throat. As Ino recited, the manic light in his eyes faded into the blank terror of a man who'd just been unmasked. When she finished, Yangqing's phone already displayed the transcribed text. He'd turned on the voice input earlier and checked for errors. You are the outsider who can fight Fantelia," the captive stammered. Jinglu sneered. "After they possess people, the disciples of Sanctus Medicus make them muddle-headed and slow. If we let you go now, who will the others suspect leaked information?" All his meridians had been stiffened by the cold chi. His obsession with immortality had shriveled down to a single fear. He tried to end his life and couldn't. Ino lowered her hand, finished. Jinglu drove her sword into his dantian. The despairing Shijie evaporated into nothing. "Little brother," Yangqing said to Jinglu, "I only wanted to drive that possessed person to despair. Fishing with a long line takes skill. Even Jingyuan didn't foresee the Lord of Destruction's sudden attack. The rest of them don't know. Miss Ino can do that," Jinglu said, sheathing her sword. "Has Jingyuan never taught you the value of information asymmetry?" "The general did tell me," Yangqing admitted, cheeks reddening. "I understand." Yangqing noticed that whenever Jinglu reprimanded him, he either reddened or had no reply. It wasn't because she was his grandmaster, so much as that what she said often made sense. "All right," Jinglu said. "Let's hurry. Don't let these small things slow us down." Chapter 84. Zhang Xinren, Old Friend. The group encountered no further obstacles and reached the entrance of the Luofu Craftsman's Commission. Yanqing, already having heard of Xuanjin's arrest, grinned from ear to ear. Jinglu peered into the compound and sighed. Alas, she said, the ambrosial arbor has revived, and abominations are everywhere. Even the Commission's most vital artifact, the creation furnace, is nearly beyond saving. Yanqing's smile vanished at once. It all happened so suddenly. I heard many of the craftsmen and apprentices fled in a hurry. Only one old master stayed behind to hold the place. He waited for outside aid, and only then was the creation furnace spared. How interesting, Jingliu murmured. Careless with life, stubborn and unbending, he reminds me of an old acquaintance who had too much pride. Yingxing. If he saw this mess at the commission, he'd probably laugh at the Xianzhou people's incompetence. Yangqing seized the chance to rebut. What nonsense! What's wrong with valuing life and waiting for the cloud nights when danger comes? Jingliu looked at Dan Heng and Ino. If that's true, where were the cloud nights when the danger struck? I heard it was a group of foreign travelers who saved the place. The Luofu is vast, Yangqing answered. Besides, many troops were sent off to assist Yaoging in battle. The cloud nights were stretched thin. How could they be everywhere at once? For once, Jingliu didn't push the argument. Yes, the abominations seem endless, capable of coming back again and again. We've already lost count of how many have been buried for good. As long as Xianzhou unites, and together with the hunt we pursue and eradicate the demons, the final victory will be ours, Yanqing declared, full of confident vigor. Jingliu watched him for a moment, lost in thought. For an instant, she seemed to be the young recruit who had first entered the Luofu Cloud Knights, or the leader of the High Cloud Quintet on their earliest days. Then she was herself again. Big sister, you came to the commission to pay respects to that short-lived senior Yingxing, right? Let's go. Jingliu's voice snapped everyone back to the present. Yangqing immediately challenged. When did you say he was dead? Short-lived races don't have much time, Jingliu said. Even stasis can't extend them for long. If he were alive now, he'd be a frail old man. At that, Dan Heng remembered the man who, whether in dreams or reality, always shouted 5-3 and attacked the instant they met. He asked quietly, he became a long-lived one? You guessed right, Jingliu replied. Fate loves cruel jokes. Some people, brilliant and talented, make the worst choices at crucial moments. He was clever, but he made a foolish wish, trying to use the flesh and blood of that abundance emissary to help Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune bring his fallen friend back to life. His folly turned him into an immortal monster. His soul scattered, and he fell into the very evil he once despised. What a cruel twist. You don't sound very sympathetic toward Senior Yingxing, Yangqing said. I gave him a chance to start over. Isn't that sympathy? Jingliu answered flatly. Start over? What did you do to him? Yangqing pressed. For his deeds, he deserved eternal imprisonment in Cloudford, Jingliu said. But I gave him another kind of freedom. I took that empty shell of a body, taught him swordsmanship, gave him 100 deaths, and forced him never to forget the karma of his past life. Little brother, didn't Jingyuan order you to capture him before? Yangqing's eyes went wide. Wait, you mean Yingxing is Blade? He and that short-lived senior from the High Cloud Quintet are the same person. Then how much do I resemble the swordsman described in the old books? Jingliu asked with a faint, wry smile. Yanqing was stunned. He had been shocked more than once while traveling with Jingliu, but if she hadn't been standing right in front of him, he would never have believed that this soft-voiced big sister and the decisive former Luofu swordmaster, once on the verge of falling into the Mara-struck state, were the same. I've said what I needed to, Jingliu went on. Next, we'll visit the Alchemy Commission. The Alchemy Commission? Yangqing frowned. Senior Bai Heng was a genius pilot, Senior Yingxing a master craftsman. I don't recall an alchemist among the High Cloud Quintet. There isn't a sixth member to the High Cloud Quintet, Jingliu said. I'm going to the Alchemy Commission as an ordinary patient to consult the Dragon Lady of Medicine. It's not far from Scale Gorge Waterscape. Once this is done, the mission your general assigned will be nearly complete. Dan Heng added, matter-of-factly, the Dragon Lady of Medicine, Bailu, is currently the Vididara Dragon Elder of the Luofu. I was with her a short while ago before I joined you. But Jingliu drew her sword slightly. Because of the Dragon Master's scheming during Dan Feng's shedding, Not only are you still under the shadow of Dan Heng Imbibitor Lune, but she, as Dragon Elder, has effectively lost real authority over the Vidya clan. Some among the Vidyadhara hold the true power, propping up a puppet with only half the Elder's strength. Only they think they've hidden it well. Yangqing flinched. A fierce killing intent radiated from Jingliu. He quickly realized it wasn't aimed at them and let go of his sword hilt. When they arrived at the Alchemy Commission, Bailu spotted Ino in the group and waved. "Isn't this Miss Ino?" "Oh, Mr. Dan Heng is here too? Did we just miss something? Is this an emergency?" Dan Heng stepped forward. "Miss Bailu, I'm not the one seeking consultation. It's the person next to me." "Oh, by your appearance, is it your eyesight or something else?" Bailu asked kindly. "My eyes are fine," Dan Heng said. "I wear the cover because I don't want to see things and be drawn into past memories. Lately, my thoughts are scattered, and I suffer night terrors. I'd like to ask the Dragon Elder if there's a way to calm my mind." Yangqing's eyebrows rose. He couldn't believe Jingliu and the resolute former swordmaster were the same person until now. Bailu's voice was gentle. "Your self-reported symptoms aren't exactly within my ordinary remit. Still, the Alchemy Commission's healers don't turn people away. Big sister, please extend your hand. We'll start with a pulse diagnosis. After that, you'll take some translucent worms so I can examine you more thoroughly." Jingliu obliged and held out her wrist. The instant Lu felt her pulse, she drew back, instinctive recoil on her face. "Your hand, so cold. I'm sorry." "It's all right, so long as it doesn't harm the Dragon Elder," Jingliu said. "That won't happen," Bailu murmured. After a moment, she stepped aside with Dan Heng and lowered her voice to what she thought was confidential. "Mr. Dan Heng, your friend's illness is strange. Her pulse is almost imperceptible. Normally that would mean she doesn't have long to live." Dan Heng finished in the same hush. Ba, please don't make medical diagnoses on behalf of the healers," Bailu scolded, then immediately softened her tone when Jingliu turned her head. Ino noticed a subtle change in Jingliu after she saw Dan Heng and Bailu exchange words, a faint curve at the corner of her mouth, something that made her look 700 years younger. Jingliu's eyes flickered, and she whispered to herself, "The draconic transformation. So that's what it is." 85. Clouds leave no trace. Anyway, your friend's condition is very strange. On the outside, she looks alive, but when I took her hand to check her pulse, it felt like holding a block of ice. Her dantian and meridians are like an underground river, constantly pulsing. I've never seen anything like it. With further study, it might even be worth recording in medical texts. Can you bring her to me for regular checkups? She is a major criminal. This matter falls under the Cloud Knights and the Ten Lords Commission. Bailu was the one taken aback this time. Appearances are deceiving. She looks so fragile. How could she be a major criminal? Bailu murmured. No wonder the young man beside her looks like a Cloud Knight. Still, if it's something I shouldn't interfere in, I won't pry. If she can come to me for a consultation now, prescribing medicine shouldn't be a problem. Sigh. Given her condition, I can only do my best. Whatever I prescribe next, she must drink plenty of warm water. Come with me. I will write a prescription for a spirit-returning vitality powder. These few ingredients won't dispel the chaos completely, but they can nourish the vital energy and steady the mind. Wait, where's my big medicine chest? I'm sorry, Yangqing said. After Dan Shu was arrested, the Cloud Knights swept through the Alchemy Commission. The disciples of Sanctus Medicus were wiped out. Their positions are vacant, and everything in the commission's a mess. May I trouble the highly skilled Mr. Dan Heng and Miss Ino to come with me to retrieve the medicine? It seems the Dragon Lady is in trouble? I'll go too. Yangqing sighed inwardly. He knew if Dan Heng and Ino weren't present, he couldn't stop Jingliu from leaving. Let's go together. Then, I'll trouble you all, Bailu said, sniffing carefully. It's nearby. Everyone, follow me. Bailu dashed ahead with the others close behind. Not long after, several Kuimu and Lu Jin beasts and even a Changyu appeared in their path. Why are there dogs and wolves here, and a giant gorilla? Since when did the Alchemy Commission have beasts coming for treatment? A Kuimu let out a long howl and lunged at Bailu. Before Dan Heng and Ino could react, a cold flash split the creature cleanly in two. Jingliu's sword had done it. Annoying pests, she said, voice calm. I'll clear them. Seeing Jingliu take that stance, Ino stepped forward, flicked a Lu Jin into the air, then moved to pin it down. Before it could struggle free, she injected a viral tracer and began examining its biological structure. "So this is the physiology of an abundance beast," she murmured. "The differences from ordinary canines are not as great as I expected." Within a certain range, damaged cells are restored by imaginary energy. This is the abundance, Dan Heng added. The cells affected by it seem to have all undergone a kind of uncontrolled proliferation, carcinogenesis. But by the time Ino had finished most of her analysis and neutralized the Lu Jin, there were no more abundance beasts left. Bailu had already found the medicine chest tucked nearby. "Let's see," she said, rooting through it. "Tranquilizing grass, vitality-boosting powder. These ingredients won't cure her entirely, but they can stabilize her spirit and nourish her vital energy." Jingliu shook her head slightly and declined the prescription. "No need," she said. "Even if the Dragon Lady's medical skill were divine, it probably wouldn't change the fate of the long-lived." "Mara struck? But you don't look like it. Recently we've had many victims of Mara strike in Luofu. They were incoherent, mentally unstable, or physically mutated, terrifying to look at. I don't see any strange growths on you. I made a bargain and was granted more time. Though I can still think for now, my mind is at its limit. That being said, I still have many regrets and unfinished matters." "Oh, you understand the root of your problem. I can't help with matters of the heart, but the medical texts say, 'Still the heart, then the body rests.' If you can let go of the past, there is room for recovery. All I have left is the sword in my hand and the grudges of the past. If I let go of even those, I'm afraid I will be nothing. Thank you for your counsel, Dragon Lady. Seeing you once is worth 100 times any medicine. Little brother, let's go. The mission Jing Yuan assigned will be finished soon. And Dan Heng, Imbibitor Lune, you come with us as well. Since we are traveling together, it's not over until the final stop." Inside the Scale Gorge waterscape, Ino saw Jing Yuan and Blade standing by the Dragon Lord's statue, with a squad of Cloud Knights escorting Luocha. "Everyone who should be here has arrived, Jing Yuan. Let the irrelevant people leave." Yangqing said no more. He and the other Cloud Knights escorted Luocha away. Jing Yuan turned to Ino and bowed. "Miss Ino, you saved the Luofu from danger. I should thank you profusely, but there are still matters I must attend to. Please make yourself comfortable. Once this is resolved, I will come personally to express my gratitude." Ino gave Dang a questioning look. He shook his head slightly to signal she'd be fine. Ino didn't go far. She lingered at the entrance to the Scale Gorge waterscape. The High Cloud Quintet, their story must also be a tragic romance. She said half to herself, "I always feel, if we had come to Luofu 700 years earlier, I would have become good friends with them, especially Bai Heng." She hummed quietly. "Bai Heng and Aether, I can imagine they'd have a lot to talk about." From Jingliu's fragmented words, I can piece together what happened 700 years ago. Bai Heng's position in the High Cloud Quintet is consistent with Aether's role among the 13 Flame Chasers. You two would have had much in common, but as long as the Abundance's lingering effects remain, the tragedy of the High Cloud Quintet will repeat. Ino pulled out her phone. While accompanying Jingliu from Shen's mansion to the Alchemy Commission earlier, she'd taken the time to skim publicly available records on Luofu. Whether it was the Shuohu War 7 centuries ago or the earlier fire calamity, almost all the wars on Luofu trace back to the Ambrosial Arbor. Now that the Arbor has been reborn, the Abundance followers will likely stir again. However, during the Third Abundance Follower War 30 years ago, the Aeon intervened directly. It inflicted severe losses on Shanzhou, but the Abundance forces suffered even greater losses. In the short term, they won't be a major threat. It feels like Ino is very concerned about the plight of the Shanzhou alliance. Maybe it's not just because of the little fish. Actually, it was one line in a certain document that set off a lot of associations for me. She read aloud the sentence that had caught her attention. "Evil must be purged. The hunt never ceases." Marshal of the Cloud Knights, Hua. 86. 3 sentences made General Shen say. "Ino, you mean?" Jing Yuan started. "Ever since I came to Luofu, I've noticed many things here echo the Shenzhou of the old civilization," Ino said. "So I'm thinking, Even if this Hua isn't the original person, she could be. In short, you're very curious about this Hua and want to meet her, right? Dan Heng chimed, a teasing lilt in his voice. Yes, but based on what we know now, as the Marshal of the Xianzhou Alliance, it would be extremely difficult to meet her, even for a genius. Public records don't even say which Xianzhou she's on. But you already have an approach in mind, don't you? Jingyuan pressed. I can only say I have a goal, not a plan, she admitted. The biggest problem facing the Xianzhou is the Mara struck. If I can make some breakthroughs there, it'll draw the attention of the Alliance's higher-ups. At that moment, fierce fighting noises rose from behind them, and a cold glint fell from the sky. For a moment, the entire Scale Gorge waterscape fell silent. Waited until the sounds died down, then Jingyuan and Dan Heng stepped out side by side. Looked between them, about to speak, then hesitated. Miss just say what you mean, Jingyuan urged. Bailu is the reincarnation of Bai Heng after her resurrection, right? Asked. Dan Heng's surprise was quick and obvious. The divine foresight general's heart skipped as well. From Jinglu's words, I've pieced together this much. Bai Heng sacrificed herself during the Shuohu War 700 years ago. Yingxing and Dan Feng did something on Luofu that caused great upheaval. Jinglu took their actions as sacrilege against Bai Heng, and Jinglu's attitude toward Bailu was unusually tender. So I'm thinking the dragon-transforming divine art Jinglu mentioned might be literal, transforming other races into Vididara. Given the context, the one transformed was likely Bai Heng. Miss is indeed sharp, Dan Heng said. To deduce so much from a few words from Jinglu. To be frank, the result of Yingxing and Dan Feng using the dragon-transforming divine art was the birth of a monstrous dragon that went on a rampage from the moment it was created. By then, Jinglu was already old. After she slew the beast, she recalled the whole story of the High Cloud Quintet and eventually succumbed to the Mara struck. That was the great catastrophe caused by Dan Feng and Yingxing. Stared at Jingyuan's tired, sorrowful eyes and found no words. Jingyuan quickly steered the mood away from awkwardness. Miss you didn't wait here only out of concern for his safety. There was another reason, wasn't there? Told them about the little fish. The plight of people born with congenital defects. The general knows better than I do, an outsider. But there might be a way. Since biological implants are corrected forcibly by the power of abundance, why not try mechanical devices? The Xianzhou has considered that, Jingyuan said. Crutches can help those born without legs, but for the congenitally blind, the Alliance hasn't found a good solution. Still, you must have a lead if you're asking, Dan Heng observed. It's only a lead. To solve the problem, I need to find the cause. I want to learn more from Dan Shu. Enter Cloudford Prison to interrogate Dan Shu? Jingyuan's eyebrows rose. Given your previous actions, that shouldn't be impossible. But how do you plan to get useful information from Dan Shu? I can read her memory like a memo keeper, said simply. Dan Heng nodded. I see. So that means... As leader of the disciples of Sanctus Medicus, Dan Shu must have memories of which disciples are still hiding on Luofu and who colluded with them when Phantelia caused trouble. It's not impossible for me to extract that information, but for a genius, interest is everything. Miss what do you want to know? Speak plainly. If I can, I'll tell you everything. Swallowed. What do you know about the Marshal of the Xianzhou Alliance? The Marshal, as head of the 7 Arbiter Generals of the Emperor Bo, she can mobilize the Cloud Knights across the Alliance. The other 6 generals are under her command. What I want to know is where she is, what she looks like, and what kind of person she is. Jingyuan looked taken aback. He glanced at Dan Heng, who looked equally unsettled. Unless the Marshal has something important to arrange, I don't meet with her often, apart from routine reports, joint meetings of the 7 Arbiter Generals, and trials. Most of those situations don't require her personal presence, so for the first question, I don't know where she is now. As for her appearance, it's hard to describe in a few words. I can send her portrait to you through the Astral Express later. Do that. For the last question, since I haven't spent much time with the Marshal, I'm not really qualified to judge her. If you get a chance to meet General Huayan in the future, he might be able to answer you. Why him? Old Yan has been alive longer than anyone in the Alliance. He served with the Marshal before the Emperor Bao ascended to godhood. He must know more. Before the Emperor Bao's ascension? So they've been around at least 4,000 years? Precisely, but the reasons for that are something I can't disclose. I know my answers may not satisfy you, Miss Eno, but rest assured I've noted your questions. If I meet someone who knows more, I'll find out. Oh, fine. Can we go to Cloudford Prison now? Opening Cloudford Prison requires notifying the Ten Lords Commission. Be patient. I'll let you know when it's ready. Eno turned and left the Scale Gorge waterscape. Dan Heng followed. As he was about to speak, Stella suddenly appeared beside a nearby space anchor, a small camera in hand. Hey, so you and Dan Heng were both here. Dan Heng noticed the device. That is. I met an old man named Todd in the Starfaring Trade Hub, Stella said. He claimed to be a scholar from the Erudition Society and asked me to take a few pictures of the Scale Gorge waterscape with this camera. By the way, Dan Heng, are we allowed to take pictures here? Taking pictures alone is fine, Dan Heng replied, but what is Todd's purpose in it? He said he's researching the history and customs of the Xianzhou. Oh, and I helped him find a copy of the pharmaceutical compendium in the Alchemy Commission earlier. Dan Heng frowned. I have a feeling he's not here just to study our customs. Eno stretched. I happen to have some free time. I'll go meet him with you. Is he still in the Starfaring Trade Hub, Stella? Yes, he's sitting on a bench. What about you, Dan Heng? I'm going back to the train first. I need time to digest everything that just happened. After she finished taking photos in Scale Gorge waterscape, Eno accompanied Star to the Starfall Navali. Look, the man on the front bench with the cane is Todd, Star said. Eno followed her gaze. He looked like an ordinary old man enjoying the view. First, give him the photos and see what else he wants you to do. Turn on your phone's recorder at the same time. I'll be listening nearby. All right. Star walked over and handed the camera and the prints to Todd. He examined them carefully, then his eyes fixed on a single picture. Is there a problem with the photos? Star asked. No problem. On the contrary, you've captured something interesting. Todd smiled. I thought it would be enough just to see these landscapes through photos, but in one of them I found an optical marker used only by internal personnel of the Erudition Society. That means a certain scholar came here to research and left a trace for colleagues. When I scanned the photos, the Society's processing program flagged it automatically. An unexpected discovery, haha. He looked through the prints a little longer, then raised his voice. Could it be Teacher Benini's mark? You're a person of action. Star frowned. Graffiti on ancient ruins is uncivilized. Ahem. Allow me to explain. If an optical coating is non-corrosive and non-toxic, and can only be identified by the Society's devices, I prefer to call it preserving relics. Leaving these marks can remind the idiots from the armed archaeology faction not to blow things up. Then why would your teacher leave them? This old man doesn't know, but a marker implies clues and instructions. I plan to follow that trail to see what Teacher Benini left behind. Star sighed. I knew it. Starting with why and ending with, I knew this wouldn't be simple. That's research. Todd tapped the camera. There's an erudition plugin in this model. Press here, and you can receive the reflected signal from the Society marker and imprint the clue. That should be very simple for you, right? Star had no idea how trying Todd's very simple task could be. The same mark might be split, one half on the top of a pillar, the other on the base of another stone. To imprint it intact, you'd have to move repeatedly to find the precise angle, a maddening process. Eno's brow tightened. The Cloudford prison was about to open. The Cloud Knights and the Ten Lords Commission would soon sweep Scale Gorge. If Star tried to imprint in front of them, Eno sent a quick message. Star looked up. What happens if the Cloud Knights and the Ten Lords Commission catch me imprinting? Todd's face changed. It's best not to let them see. Will your research endanger Luofu? Star asked. Todd shook his head so hard his cane rattled. No, not at all. I'm not a Lord of Destruction. How could I hold such power? I swear, by the name of erudition, anything you help us uncover will never be used unethically. A soft voice cut in, cool and flat. Erudition doesn't answer to any morality recognized by life. Swearing in the name of that machine head is meaningless. Todd bristled. How dare you? Then he stopped mid-protest. He saw who was there, and his expression froze. If a genius glimpsed by erudition was standing before him, he was suddenly much less courageous. "Miss Eno, how did you?" Eno didn't waste words. She placed her hand on Todd's shoulder and read. It took only a few seconds. When she withdrew her hand, Todd watched her face change and tried desperately to guess what she'd seen. "Recording Xianzhou's customs, history, and culture is one of your reasons for coming," Eno said quietly. "But the main reason is that you hope to find a method for longevity from the clues your teacher Benini left. You know seeking longevity on Xianzhou is a grave taboo for outsiders." Todd's head snapped up. This is what your deep brainwaves told me," she finished. "You read my deepest thoughts?" he managed. "You can take it like that. But you're not a memo keeper, and that wasn't any harmony technique. It doesn't belong to any path. It's an ability I was born with." Todd sagged back onto the bench as if his legs had been cut from under him. He looked utterly drained, all the fight gone from his face. He fumbled in his medicine box, trembling, and swallowed a pill. The tension left him a moment later. The pain in his expression eased into something like resignation. 88. Break Defense Star hesitated for a moment, thinking about the risk of being arrested for running errands for Todd, then pulled out her baseball bat. "No need. After I found out he was chasing immortality, I already sent word to the Shent's mansion. The Luofu will handle the rest. In his current state, he can't run anywhere." "I wish I could do every mission with you," Eno said. "It depends, at least not for a while. I need to go to Cloudford Prison to learn some things from Dan Shu and analyze the energy flow of the Abundance Path." Todd seemed to come back to himself then, moving slowly and fixing his gaze on Eno. "Miss Eno, may I ask you one last question?" Eno nodded. "Go ahead." "As everyone knows, you drew the erudition's attention because you cracked the anti-organic equation left by Emperor Rupert. Why did you not continue research in that field? Why choose something else?" Eno looked puzzled. "Research in a field only starts when someone believes effort can lead to a breakthrough." Todd blinked. I didn't put effort into cracking the anti-organic equation. I basically solved it with an instinctive ability the moment I encountered it. I don't know how to push for a breakthrough in that area." Todd's pupils tightened, then his expression went distant. He started mumbling. "A casual action, a sudden flash of insight, those can overturn an entire discipline. That's what a genius is. Haha, how foolish I was. When I was young, I believed people smarter than you work harder than you. Even a genius must have worked as hard as I did. I never thought there were people who achieved world-shaking things so easily they didn't know how to work hard." Ailey peered at him. "Did I trigger him by saying that? I only answered his question." Alicia chuckled. "Eno, you must understand. Lies don't hurt. The truth is a sharp knife. Who could blame me for praising Eno so highly? On that point, Eno needs more confidence. I'm even worried that someone will one day steal Eno away from me." Eno blurted instinctively, "That's impossible." Star, who had been looking around, turned at the sound. She was used to Eno muttering to herself and didn't think much of it, then prepared to leave. Alicia raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is that because we're the closest?" "Because, Ailey, Alicia is different. Only Alicia is different." Alicia waved her hand and told Eno to stop. She felt the gravity of her space shift. "All right, I knew it. Eno likes me the most. So, Eno, be more confident and smile more from now on, okay? I'll try." Soon the Grand Executive of the Everwinter Shadewalkers personally led a team to take Todd away. Jing Yuan also sent a message inviting Eno to Scale Gorge Waterscape. Sometime later, Eno arrived at the Ancient Sea. Waiting to greet her, in addition to the Cloud Knights, were several Yufu warriors from the Ten Lords Commission. The lead Yufu stepped forward when he saw her. "By General Jing Yuan's summons, we've opened the entrance, prepared the documents, and are here to escort you. The judge of the questioning department is aware of your purpose. If you're ready, we will open the prison gate." Eno looked out over the waters. Beneath Scale Gorge Waterscape, a faint, indistinct space shimmered. "Cloudford Prison is inside Scale Gorge Waterscape?" Strictly speaking, Cloudford Prison spans multiple pocket dimensions. The Ancient Sea is just one that overlaps with it. A whirlpool-shaped gate rose from the water. "Miss Eno, please enter." Eno touched the whirlpool and was drawn through. Inside Cloudford Prison, the space opened into something vast, gloomy, and oppressive. Pillar-like structures extended downward into shadow. An eerie green light washed the floor, giving the place a sinister feel. A jade abacus glowed nearby, its beads moving as it calculated who knew what, cell status, security conditions, or something else. A blue-haired judge, her hair a paler shade than Ino's, stepped forward. "You've waited long enough, honored guest. I am Hanya, judge of the questioning department. I heard my sister was helped by you and the other passengers on the express. Hanya thanks you." "Sister? The automaton judge you met earlier, Shui, is my sister. During the Shuohu War, she survived only by transferring into an automaton body after we were rescued by General Teng Xiao. Sorry, I spoke too much. Please come in." With a dull thud, the heavy gate of suppressing evil opened. Behind it, 2 rows of Yufu warriors stood at the ready. "Miss Ino, beyond this gate we're on the uppermost floor of Cloudford Prison. This level holds offenders with lesser crimes. The deeper we go, the darker the sins. Dan Shu, leader of the Disciples of Sanctus Medicus, is currently on the second-to-last floor. It's a ways down, so please follow my lead. And the lowest floor holds worse offenders, naturally. Former Wingweaver's Battle Chief Hule, for example. They went down. Not long after, a Yufu warrior escorted a talkative young man. He made no physical resistance, but his mouth wouldn't stop. "You don't know me, do you?" he asked as they walked. The Yufu answered flatly, "Why would I know you? I'm a great artist." "A great artist? Then how did you end up here?" "Sk. People just don't get my humor. I told a few jokes." "You got locked up for telling a few jokes?" "Yes. Crosstalk is offensive art. If it's not crooked, it isn't funny." Another Yufu snorted. "You've got offense, no art." "What do you know? That's called audience interaction." "Audience interaction? You mean wandering the Luofu, randomly finding victims to tell jokes to, and when they don't play along you hit them? That's the art of offense." The 2 guards exchanged looks, ignored his chatter, and pushed him into a cell on the first floor. No matter how much he tried to strike up a conversation, they didn't respond. Chapter 89, The 10 Kings of Compassion, Cloudford Prison, B1. Miss Ino, the Disciples of Sanctus Medicus, arrested during Fantilia's earlier rebellion, who committed lighter offenses, are held here, Hanya explained. No sooner had she spoken than a murmur rose from one of the cells down the hall. A voice chanted with fervor, "The Medicus King is benevolent, the ambrosial arbor sprouts, the planters are of one heart, together ascending to ultimate bliss." At the utterance of these words, 99,999 planters were all freed from the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death. "The Medicus King is benevolent, the ambrosial arbor sprouts, the planters are of one heart, together ascending to the immortal path." Wait, why is it together ascending to the immortal path? I'm sure it was together ascending to ultimate bliss before. Oh no, have I been memorizing it wrong all these decades? Ino glanced toward the cell. The planter inside seemed stuck in rote repetition, harmless enough, at most deceiving the masses with trite formulas, but clearly no real threat. That was why she was confined to this floor. Ahead, Ino spotted a broad-shouldered figure behind the bars. "Who's in that cell? They don't look like a native of Xianzhou." Hanya hesitated, then said, "Wait here. I'll ask the Crimson Guard warden assigned to this section." "Ah, this one is a Borisin from the Moon Eater pack. Their danger level was rated relatively low, so they're kept on this level." "A Borisin with a low danger rating? Seeing is believing. If you want, go take a look." "We're here to see Dan Shu, aren't we?" Ino prompted. "My orders are to bring you to Dan Shu's confinement," Hanya replied with a half-smile. "But within the limits allowed, I'm to accommodate your curiosities as much as possible." Ino walked up the ramp. As she reached the barred door, an enthusiastic voice called out from inside. "Welcome to the Ahmad Iron Window Group. What can I get for you, honored guest?" From your clothing, you're neither prisoner nor guard, a rare visitor." Ino peered at the Borisin, who looked surprisingly cheerful rather than menacing. "Who runs a business inside Cloudford Prison?" The Borisin laughed heartily. "Ha ha! You clearly don't know our enterprise. Prisoners are people, too. Where there are people, there are needs, and where there are needs, there's business. We make business in Cloudford Prison easy for everyone. I'm Ahmed, CEO of the Ahmad Iron Window Group. Call me Boss Ma or Old Ma." He produced a bottle from somewhere and waved it. We've been operating here for years. This is our best seller. Iron Window brand shower gel. Cleanse, sterilizes, keeps you cool and comfortable. Occupational hazard to advertise, I suppose. Judging by your dress, you must be a distinguished guest from another world inspecting the prison. Maybe you wouldn't be interested in our humble wares, but items crafted by prisoners, those you won't find anywhere else. If you don't want to buy anything, ask questions instead. Answering visitors is part of my job. Eno finally understood Hanya's earlier comment. Ahmad looked imposing in build, but he had no killing aura. Compared to the Borisin customs recorded in official files, this one was almost an anomaly. What crime landed you here? Ahmad heaved a dramatic sigh. What crime could a Borisin commit? War crimes, of course. But I'll say it now. I have no blood on my hands. I've never harmed anyone, be they Xianzhou Celestials, Foxians, Vidyadharas, or folk from other worlds. As a child, I disliked fighting. I liked doing business. The pack thought me a joke. My father was ashamed. Once, when the pack went to plunder a merchant fleet, my father shoved me onto a beast ship to get some blood on your hands and become a real man. But I'd never even seen a Xianzhou starfaring skiff before that. The ship was shot down, and when I woke up, I was a war criminal in Cloudford Prison. I've been locked up for hundreds of years. If I'd been born on Xianzhou, I'd be a fine entrepreneur by now. How did you start a business in here, then? A coincidence. At first I was lost, certain my life would be wasted in this godforsaken place. I scratched my head so much I baldied the fur on my ears. Then a wondrous bird flew into my cell and dropped some strange snacks, offering to buy the fur I'd scratched off. I asked what it needed my fur for. It said Borisin fur is exceptionally strong, and ropes made from it are precious and rare here. That was when I realized everything has value. Soon after, that old bird and I founded the Ahmad Iron Window Group to provide services where resources are scarce. Does the Ten Lords Commission allow business in Cloudford Prison? Eno asked. Officially, no, but unofficially, the Crimson Guard and the judges struck a deal with us. If we remain obedient and follow the rules, they'll turn a blind eye to a bit of small business. The other guards and judges tacitly agree. They say giving idle prisoners something to do prevents trouble. Fewer fights, fewer riots. Besides, I never liked fighting. Eno couldn't help a small laugh. Borisin and business weren't the image she'd expected. That's your stereotype, Ahmad said. Borisin in other worlds, especially to Xianzhou eyes, are seen as bloodthirsty barbarians, but we have other ways to get resources than raiding. Even the violent among us trade with other packs, Abundance followers, and the Annihilation Gang from time to time. You don't sound like you ever did anything truly awful, Eno observed. That's exactly what I told the judges. But they said, regardless of motive, participating in aggressive wars is wrong, and one must pay the price. Still, the judges were reasonable. They told me there was a way out by earning merits, following in the path of Lady Jingliu. Eno blinked. Lady Jingliu? The Luofu's former sword champion? Ahmad scratched his head. At first I thought it impossible. Lady Jingliu captured the war champion alive. How could I be compared to her? But the judges explained the merit system clearly. Assisting the Ten Lords Commission counts as one minor merit. 13 minor merits combine into one medium merit. 13 mediums become one major merit. 13 majors combine into one miraculous feat. I did the math. You need 28,561 minor merits to reach one miraculous feat. If I can pull that off, the judges said they'd arrange special treatment so I could leave Cloudford Prison once a week to set up a stall for a day. Every time I think of it, I get excited. The Ten Lords are benevolent. The Ten Lords are benevolent, Eno repeated under her breath, curious how the disciples of Sanctus Medicus would react if they heard a Borisin praising the Ten Lords as he did. Ahmad's enthusiasm faded into a chuckle. Oh, one more thing. If you meet Dan Shu, feel free to listen in. I might still owe some favors. He winked, then resumed his cheerful sales pitch. As Eno moved on toward Dan Shu's cell, a thought occurred to her. I could send this into her mind when I interrogate her later. Chapter 90, Network. After leaving Amma's room, Eno and Hanya continued down to the lower levels. The strange prisoners of Cloudford Prison had been an eye-opener for both Eno and Alicia. Hanya patiently answered Ino's questions to satisfy her curiosity. Most of the prisoners on the upper floors held no state secrets, so there was little she needed to hide. At the chasm, a Yufu warrior flipped a switch, and the drawbridge that led to the other side rotated into place. On impulse and out of curiosity, Ino touched the mechanism and injected a virus into it. As expected, she muttered. Many things in the Xianzhou Alliance are primitive high-tech, and precisely because they're rudimentary, they can't stop me at all. Ino could feel the control architecture of Cloudford Prison. The mechanisms all responded to a central terminal, not unlike the gates on Herta Space Station. If she had wanted, she could have opened every cell on the upper levels within a minute. Even the lowest floor would have taken only 1 more minute. Hanya and the other warriors had paused, watching Ino stand before the mechanism without moving for a long moment. "Everything all right?" Hanya asked. "Cloudford Prison isn't secure enough," Ino said. "If I'd had bad intentions—" "You jest," Hanya cut in. "If you had bad intentions, General Jingyuan wouldn't have let you in. We wouldn't be having this conversation. As for safety, there's no absolutely safe place. Geniuses like you are exceptions. To stop you, you'd need other geniuses designing the defenses." They pressed on. On the second-to-last floor, the number of Yufu warriors increased noticeably. 2 automaton soul snatchers bowed slightly as Hanya entered. "Lady Hanya, the Mirror of Karma is ready. The interrogation may begin at once." "Begin." As the great doors opened, Ino saw Danshu pinned to the wall, limbs fixed in restraints. Danshu laughed when she noticed the commotion. "Heh, heh, I didn't expect an interrogation so soon. Seems our people have given the Abundance followers plenty to do." Hanya's face was expressionless. "You were the former chief alchemist. Now your belief in the ancestor of the Scourge of Longevity is only a matter of imagination. Don't overthink it. We simply have a method to make you reveal your collaborators." She gestured, and 2 warriors rolled a full-length mirror into position facing Danshu, then brought a table and a stool. "Miss Ino, please?" Danshu's smile vanished, but she managed a sneer. "You'd like to see what?" A hand pressed against her shoulder. Immediately, in Danshu's mind, she saw the chains that bound her. "No, why can I see now?" she whispered. The mirror's smooth surface blossomed with a field of red dots. The Mirror of Karma's recorded results matched the prisoner's actual responses. "Device functioning normally," a soul snatcher announced. Hanya picked up a brush and began to write in a ledger. Ino started reading names aloud. According to Danshu, disciples of Sanctus Medicus, still active on the Luofu. Alchemist Shuhei joined the disciples of Sanctus Medicus in star calendar 8001, April, currently in Biluo Heaven. Cloud Knight Tuobu joined in star calendar 8075, June, currently in Bian Heaven. As Ino named names, Danshu began to tremble. Everything Ino said was true. She clawed at her own memories, trying to erase what she'd revealed, but the harder she tried, the clearer the images became. Hanya watched both the mirror's output and Danshu's reactions, growing more confident that Ino's list was accurate. Line after line filled the ledger. After a while, several hundred names had been recorded. Only then did Ino relax her hand and shake her head. "These are everyone Danshu knows," she said. "Even as a leader, she can't possibly remember every recruit, especially those who joined the disciples of Sanctus Medicus in recent years." "Understood." Hanya nodded. "Thank you for your help, Miss Ino. I will report this to the Ten Lords. If you wish to ask Danshu anything else, you may." A warrior pushed the Mirror of Karma away. Danshu sagged against the wall, her muscles spent. Never thought even a genius, once scrutinized by the omniscient Celestial, would stoop to become a lackey of the Abundance. "I didn't expect you to join the disciples of Sanctus Medicus and rise so high," Hanya said. "You know the truth. Persons with congenital deficiencies aren't cured because of the Abundance. If the Plague Springer is killed and the path of abundance is disrupted, couldn't you implant artificial eyes biologically and recover sight that way?" "Nonsense," Danshu snapped. "If the Xianzhou Alliance embraces the Abundance, the whole race will undergo evolution, and congenital deficiencies will naturally disappear. And then Lan would mark the Xianzhou Alliance as an Abundance Fiend Alliance and shoot his arrows at you," Hanya replied. Danshu fell silent. She remembered a friend killed by Lan's light arrow in the Third Abundance Follower War. She understood that if Lan took the Xianzhou alliance to be an agent of the abundance, survival would be impossible. The disciples of Sanctus Medicus saw the abundance as evolution, but Lan saw it as corruption. Lan's arrows did not distinguish motives. After a long pause, Dan Shu spoke again, quieter this time. But that doesn't mean embracing the abundance is wrong. It only proves the abundance is an evil god. Even Miss Ino, a genius, may not understand the abundance fully. You have a point, Ino said. On the abundance, we should consult those who have studied it longer. Experts, Dan Shu scoffed. Who would be qualified? In the list of geniuses, 81 Ruan Mei. Wait, I'll send her a message now. Ino reached into her network of contacts and selectively read the key points of Ruan Mei's research on the abundance. She also scanned Dan Shu's studies on persons with congenital deficiencies over the past centuries. Persons with congenital deficiencies, Ino mused. I see. Then Screwlum's plan might be feasible. Screwlum, Dan Shu blinked. How could an automaton understand the affairs of the Xianzhou Celestials? Even he probably can't solve congenital blindness like mine. He thinks he can, Ino said. He's already contacted number 84 Stephen Lloyd, hoping that with Stephen's help, technologies that capture light and sound in a specific area could be adapted into new inventions. Dan Shu's disbelief melted into stunned silence as Ino casually added, Number 83, Herta also sent a message, complaining that I, Ruan Mei, Screwlum, and Stephen Lloyd are collaborating without her. She says the research would go much more smoothly with her involved. Dan Shu had no ready reply. Watching Ino contact and cross-reference 4 geniuses with such ease left her speechless. 91. Immortal. After the interrogation, Hanya escorted Ino out of Cloudford prison. Ah, blue skies, white clouds, sunshine, and a gentle breeze. Much better. Inside Ino's inner space, Alicia stretched and gazed at the sky above Scale Gorge waterscape. Did Cloudford prison make you uncomfortable? No, not really. Ino protected me well. It's just, after being locked up there, I realize I prefer the outside even more. A prison isn't built for comfort, after all. Alicia pouted and put on an exaggeratedly wronged expression. If there was anything truly uncomfortable about Cloudford, tell me. We won't go back. Ino knew that face well. After so much time together, she could read Alicia's teasing. Still, she flushed and stammered. I didn't. If Ely were genuinely upset, I'd have to explain it right away. If she's teasing, if she's happy, then that's what matters. Alicia laughed at the soft, blushing Ino and slipped behind her, resting her chin on Ino's shoulder. I only meant to tease you, but look, Ino is trying to coax me exactly the way I wanted. She hugged her. Next time, if Ino has something to say, come be cute in my arms. I can never refuse a request from a cute girl like me. Where to next? To the Divination Commission, though not yet. Probably in a few days. First, we'll return to the Astral Express and check on Dan Heng. After Hanya submitted the list Ino had obtained from Dan Shu's mind to Jing Yuan, he immediately called an emergency meeting of the 6 Arbiter Generals, with the Alchemy Commission represented by the newly appointed Alchemy Master, Yuluo. The high-ranking officials quickly reached a firm consensus. The disciples of Sanctus Medicus were no longer ordinary thugs and had to be neutralized. An hour after the meeting ended, Cloud Knights were sent out with the list in hand. In half a day, more than 100 suspects were rounded up. The operation was exacting and efficient. The Cloud Knights enforced with deliberate force, swift blade work, and precise strikes. Their firearms were carried with a calm, uncompromising presence. Because of their discipline and speed, confessions and submissions among the disciples of Sanctus Medicus rose sharply. Back on the Astral Express, the renovations to Ino's quarters were nearly finished. Pom-Pom estimated they would be completely done before the train reached Penacony. Ino arrived outside her room and ran into Dan Heng and Welt in the observation car. Ino, Mr. Welt, she said, I have a question. I now know the hidden power inside me comes from the permanence. Do either of you know more? I want to master it better. Ino sifted through her memory instruments and shook her head. My information on the permanence is limited. It's a star god that died long ago. Although its children are said to be scattered through the universe, neither the Astral Express nor the space station staff have encountered dragon descendants beyond the Vidya clan. Welt considered for a moment and then spoke quietly. On a planet neighboring my homeland, there are records of a child of the permanence. A colleague of mine, someone I worked with for years, knew a person who, by chance, inherited the permanence's legacy from a dragon descendant named Nahara. Dan Heng and Eno both looked surprised. Welt, are you saying a child of the permanence once appeared on Earth or on Mars? Yes, according to data from a Mars quantum computer, a planet called Lacrima once received the power of the permanence via a calamity brought by a dragon. Everyone on that planet gained extended life, longevity, similar to what we see in the Xianzhou Alliance. Unlike Xianzhou, although Lacrima suffered centuries of civil war and resource crises, its people never experienced Mara in the way Xianzhou did. So Lacrima, after the permanence's intervention, effectively gained immortality, or at least extreme longevity, without apparent negative side effects? The records say so, Welt answered. But the star system where my homeland sits is blocked by the interastral peace wall, a tidal zone of imaginary energy, so it's difficult to leave. The data on the permanence come from those records, but their accuracy can't be fully guaranteed. That dragon descendant Nahara claimed to be an invited star dragon who had traveled the universe for years and could pass through that imaginary tidal zone. She said she came from Lacrima to Mars. From what we know, she's likely not of the same clan as the Vidya. So how the permanence's power took root in Dan Heng, I can't offer concrete help. Eno, Dan Heng said, what Mr. Welt just said sounds more reliable than the dragon masters on Xianzhou who only speak in legends. Eno took out her path energy detector and thought aloud. Hearing Welt, I'm struck by how similar the permanence and the abundance seem. Other paths share traits, but the permanence feels like a more complete version of the abundance. When Taziranth ascended to godhood, it ruptured the permanence's path, causing dragon descendants to lose reproductive capability and only be able to reincarnate. Could the abundance be a fragment of the permanence? Some have conjectured that, but there's no solid proof. She flipped the detector toward Dan Heng and activated it. From these readings, the path energy in Dan Heng's body, excluding the trailblaze, shows imaginary fluctuations that differ significantly from the abundance's pattern. The permanence-related legacy in him is incomplete. Its effects are closer to the abundance's healing aspects, which would more properly belong to Miss Bailu, so it may not serve as a reliable reference. That makes sense, Dan Heng said. To study the permanence, starting with the abundance, is probably the right approach. Eno hesitated, then continued. I'm thinking of studying the abundance on Xianzhou. Dan Heng's expression changed. You plan to study the abundance on Xianzhou? Yes. I haven't fully decided yet, and it's not what you might imagine. I know researching longevity on Xianzhou is taboo. There are red lines even if Phantelia were driven away. What I want to study is the path of the abundance itself. 92. Qiongguan Formation. A few days later, at Jingyuan's invitation, the Astral Express crew, Himeko being the only absence, reassembled at the Shense mansion. Everyone, I have gathered you here to once again express Shanzhou Luofu's gratitude for the Nameless's righteous deeds. I believe Diviner Fushuan has already spoken to you about this. Still, what you have done is something the Luofu can never fully repay. Therefore, on behalf of the Luofu Cloud Knights, I present to you a jade abacus to symbolize our alliance. On the table lay a uniquely shaped jade abacus. March 7th leaned in, curious. Is this a souvenir? It can be considered a kind of memento, Jingyuan replied. But it's not something you buy on a whim. Thousands of years ago, when the alliance was founded, all of Xianzhou swore a common oath, and they inscribed it on the original jade abacus as proof. Though heaven and earth may perish, this oath shall not waver. This jade abacus is the same. It records the Luofu Cloud Knight's promise to the Astral Express crew, and serves as a beacon. Hold it, and it will send a signal to the paired abacus in my hand. No matter how vast the galaxy or how arduous the journey, the Luofu Cloud Knights will come to meet the Astral Express and fulfill whatever you entrust to us. March 7th's mouth dropped open. Wow, someone really spared no expense on this. Naturally. For an item of such importance, please don't use it for trivial matters or anything that violates the terms of the Alliance. I trust everyone understands? Of course, the crew chorused. After they expressed their thanks, Jingyuan's gaze drifted to Dan Heng. I have received an edict from the Ten Lords Commission pardoning your exile. From this moment on, you are free to come and go on the Luofu as you wish. But I must warn you, Dan Feng's crimes run deep. Some people's opinions, like the tides of Scale Gorge Waterscape, won't change merely because a decree says so. I can guarantee only your freedom of movement, not your safety. Please understand that. I understand, Dan Heng said. Lastly, I want to personally thank Miss Eno. The other day, based on the list Miss Eno obtained from Dan Shu, we were able to nip the disciples of Sanctus Medicus's brewing conspiracy in the bud. According to the latest intelligence, remnants of the disciples, hiding within the Alchemy Commission, possess a miraculous concoction that lets non-humans disguise themselves as foxfolk for a time. They plan to use this drug to collude with the non-humans, allowing them to infiltrate various departments of Xianzhou. When the moment was right, they meant to break open the prison, free the inmates, and spirit away the former war leader Hule, currently imprisoned in the lowest level of Cloudford Prison, out of the Luofu. Even if that failed, they could still have caused massive chaos on the Luofu and stoked hatred between foxfolk and other peoples. What a sinister plot, someone muttered. Miss March is right, Jing Yuan continued. Fortunately, with Miss Eno's assistance, those villains' schemes were thwarted before they could even begin. I have also reported Miss Eno's meritorious service during Fantilia's rampage to the Marshal. At the joint conference of all the generals in 7 days, they will discuss the details of an additional reward for Miss Eno. I hope she can remain on the Luofu a few more days to await that good news. Of course, the Jade Gate is open now, so if Miss Eno has urgent matters, she is free to leave at any time. I have no urgent matters. I just wanted to explore the Luofu a bit, perhaps visit the Divination Commission, Eno said. Haha. I'm sure Diviner Fushuan has been waiting a long time to host Miss Eno, Jingyuan said with a smile. Sometime later, Eno arrived at the Divination Commission. Fushuan personally led her to the Matrix of Prescience. Miss Eno, please feel free to ask anything. I will tell you everything I know. Since the Matrix of Prescience can discern truth through calculation, Eno said, would using it to interrogate Dan Shu be as effective as my methods? Miss Eno is too modest, Fushuan replied. In theory, the Matrix could indeed peer into Dan Shu's thoughts, but the Matrix is enormous. It can't be moved the way you can move yourself. Dan Shu did not walk into our trap like Kafka did. If we had tried to transport her from Scale Gorge Waterscape here, unforeseen complications could have arisen along the way. Imprisoning her immediately in Cloudford was the only way to ensure we'd have ample time to extract information from her later. Furthermore, while the Matrix is powerful, each computation consumes a vast amount of resources. It's not practical to use it for every case. We reserve it for situations likely to affect the whole Luofu. I see. It said the Matrix can deduce the future. Is there a special principle behind it? There's no profound mystery. Miss Eno knows that the future changes of every blade of grass and every object can be calculated from their current state and what we already know about them. As with plants, so it is with people. Given a person's character and circumstances, their choices in specific situations are traceable. When we expand the scope in time and space, if the Matrix can calculate all the changes of all people and objects within a certain area for a period of time, it can effectively predict the future of that area. But the wider the scope, the more objects and variables are involved, and the vaguer the results become. Calculating the future of the entire Luofu can at best give you a general direction. Attempting to scale this up to the entire universe would exceed the Matrix's computational capability. Only perhaps the all-seeing Lord could do that. Eno fell silent beside Fushuan for a long moment, then a flash of inspiration struck her. So, conversely, would the results be clearer if the scope were narrower? Conversely, if there is only one subject, then yes, the result can be much more precise. What if we focus very deeply on a single target? Please, Miss Eno, elaborate. For example, after someone is injured, calculate the activity of their platelets over a certain period to determine how long it will take for a scab to form from now. That can certainly be done in principle, but it's impractical to use the Matrix of Prescience for such a thing. Perhaps this is how to suppress the abundance. Since erudition had glimpsed her, Ino had been pondering what changes that power had brought her beyond allowing Alicia to remain stably within her consciousness. The answer revealed itself. Her ability to spread and multiply had decreased significantly, but her analytical power and the efficiency of erosion had surged. If the abundance is viewed as a cancerous transformation of cells, then, so long as she could discern the pattern within it, she could calculate the division rate and movement of every cancerous cell and even predict which cells would become cancerous in the future. I am like a virus. Inducing apoptosis in cells is effortless for me, she thought. With that information, I could perform targeted clearance of the cancer in a short time. Although Xianzhou people affected by the abundance will ultimately have their normal cells transform, and this would be treating symptoms rather than curing the root cause, it could at least slow the pace of transformation. That might let those on the brink of succumbing to the Mara struck extend their lives by several years, perhaps even a decade. That should be possible, right? Chapter 93, Total Recall. Fushuan couldn't quite follow Ino's train of thought. After hearing her mutter, she looked at her with a questioning expression. Ah, just some half-baked ideas that still need testing, Ino said. Seeing Ino brush it off, Fushuan didn't press. She glanced over her shoulder. Looks like the person who needs the matrix of prescience today has just arrived. Star and March 7th, who had just come to the Divination Commission, waved. If you have something you need, speak up. Miss Ino and I have time. Diviner, did you foresee that we'd be coming? March asked. Fushuan wore a smug smile. Piece of cake. Every morning before work I run more than 10 divinations about everyday things, and they always prove accurate. Right before Miss Ino arrived, I divined unexpected complications. The hexagram swung between Kan and Qian, so I ran it through the matrix of prescience. The output said, 3 guests arrive. Respect them for ultimate good fortune. Respect them for ultimate good fortune? Star laughed. The matrix even calculates the wording. Seems our fates really are tangled. It's like this, I've got gaps in my memories, and I was hoping the matrix could find my past. Ino sighed. I can only view and interpret known memories. I don't have the power to restore memories I've never seen. If I tried to complete someone else's memories from my own assumptions, you might end up becoming a different person. Don't blame yourself for my problems, Ino, Fushuan said. Diviner? So you want the array to reconstruct the past and awaken your memories? Ino said. In theory, it's possible, but the Matrix might not be able to do it. Even the all-powerful Ino and Diviner together can't do it? Star teased, aiming to needle Fushuan. Who said that? Cough. I never said it couldn't be done, Fushuan protested. There's a world of difference between can't and might not. Let me explain how the Matrix works so there's no confusion. The Matrix of Prescience doesn't force memories into someone. It gathers information, and just as it can calculate what will happen in the future, it can deduce what likely happened in the past. It's more objective than any single person's interpretation, but its reconstructions can still deviate from the truth. So most of the content should match the real past, March asked. That's better than nothing. Since Miss March says so, I'll prepare to activate it, Fushuan said. But like Everwinter investigators reconstructing a crime, the materials needed to deduce a past event can be physical objects from that time or the memories of the person involved. What kind of things do you need? March asked. As a Nameless, you probably collected plenty of souvenirs on your travels that could trigger memories, Fushuan suggested. March frowned. I do have a pile of things, but I don't know which to choose. Ino, Star, pick for me. Star glanced at March's right hand. Before coming here, didn't you get a cup of Immortal's happy tea to relax? Use that. March considered it, then hesitated. I prefer Star Taro Boba. Cough. Is that all? Can I use something I owned before losing my memories? How would you know what's from before? Fushuan asked. I know it sounds odd, but precise reconstruction needs items actually tied to that period. Miss March, try to remember again. March swallowed. Before I lost my memories, that is, before I boarded the train, Himeko said she found me sealed naked inside a block of ice, like a newborn, with nothing around me, and shortly after they retrieved me, the ice melted away. Star smiled confidently. March, that's not necessarily the end of the story. You can still condense six-phase ice, can't you? March brightened. You're right, Star. Good thinking. If I'm supposed to have had something before losing my memories, it could be the ability to form six-phase ice. Diviner, I can conjure a piece now. Will that work? Give one to Eno too, and see what you can analyze. March closed her hand and formed a shard of six-phase ice. Eno introduced a probing virus into the shard and then probed it with her erosion ability. The ice soon shattered under the pressure. She shook her head. She couldn't draw the information March needed. Diviner, it's up to you now. All right, we'll send the item to the Matrix's base. Miss March, when you're ready, stand in the center of the array. We can begin the deduction at any time. March stepped into the center. Is that all? The array is ready. Miss March, are you prepared? I guess, maybe, I should possibly. I'm ready, she stammered. Be resolute. One more warning. Not all memories are safe to awaken. People carry a lot of pain. If you're unprepared, we can pause. I don't want well-intentioned help to cause harm. No, it's fine. I'm already here. Whether it's a donkey or a horse, treat it like a living patient. March replied. Very well. I'll connect you to the grand matrix of prescience. The matrix will read your memories and guide you to retrace your past. Whatever caused your memory loss, as long as we trace back to the obstacle blocking your memories, the matrix will use its data to deduce and construct your possible past. Can Star and Eno come with me? March asked. I'm sorry, their inclusion would add redundant data and slow the process. Worse, others' memories could overlap with yours, and you might fail to find your own past. Inside the memory palace the Matrix constructs, you must rely on yourself. You'll still be able to contact me from outside, Eno added. I can intervene in the retracing process to a limited degree. Just as the Matrix was about to be activated and Fushuan prepared to assist March 7th, Eno moved to her side. The Matrix is essentially a machine, right? That's right, Fushuan answered. Fushuan looked thoughtful. Then, I should be able to help March 7th from outside the Matrix too, just like you. Chapter 94, Obstacles. When the scene in front of her shifted, March 7th realized she was in the Alchemy Commission, more precisely, the medical market, during Fantilia's rampage. Everything spun for a moment. Ugh, I feel a bit dizzy. Fushuan's voice reached her quickly. You don't need to worry. Most people feel dizzy from an information overload when affected by the matrix of prescience. As her senses cleared, she saw two Fushuans standing before her. One of them, noticing her stare, spoke up. Don't worry, this isn't an illusion. One of us is a projection to make ongoing communication convenient. The other shows that I am actually present in this segment of your experience. At that instant, Eno appeared at March's side. But when we first met at the Alchemy Commission, wasn't Eno still on her way? Can she project herself in two? If you think of the matrix of prescience as a game, Fuan said, you're the player. Miss Eno temporarily gained administrator privileges, similar to mine, so she can do the same things I can. Fushuan looked more surprised than March at Eno's sudden presence. Is this what a genius is like? But I'm curious, how did Miss Eno obtain almost all of the Matrix's operational data and lock onto our location so quickly? Without other diviners' help, I couldn't have projected myself this precisely. March cut in. Eno, you should probably tell the diviner the truth. She likely won't spread it, and judging by her determination to get to the bottom of things. In this case, it doesn't matter whether it gets out, Eno said. Once people hear how quickly I cracked the anti-organic equation, many will suspect something like this, even if they can't accept it at first. Fushuan, still puzzled, asked, Please, no riddles, both of you. I'd appreciate a clear explanation. March held up her hands. It's a virus. Eno hacked the Matrix's terminal, and then, which is why she has administrator access. A virus? Fushuan echoed. Even that genius hacker among the Stellaron hunters couldn't conjure a virus out of nowhere and hack a system without prior intel. Did Miss Eno carry some tiny device? No device needed. March smiled. She herself is the virus sentient. Eno flushed slightly. Sorry, that came out wrong. But it's accurate. I don't need a tool to inject a virus because I am the virus. For a moment, Alicia's soft laugh echoed in Eno's head. Ha-ha, a sentient virus. What an interesting description. Thank you both for clearing that up, Fushuan said with a bemused expression. All right then, let's begin. Miss March, Go talk to that Fushuan over there and see what the diviner has to say. March walked up to the present Fushuan, one hand on her hip. Diviner. The consequences of the Stellaron-induced ambrosial arbor cannot be foreseen, the diviner intoned. The ancients said, fortune is hidden in misfortune, and misfortune is rooted in fortune. The Tao of heaven is constant. In a time when neither luck nor doom can be divined, only a capable one can save Luofu from peril. March blinked. Huh? What's she rambling about? Diviner, did you really say all that? I don't remember it. Fushuan's expression soured. It seems you think I only spout long-winded nonsense. And no, the diviner in my memory is incredibly capable. Hee. Also, there weren't so many cloud knights in the plaza back then, were there? Even though this reconstructed experience is obviously distorted, the material forming it is drawn from your memory and will not lie, Fushuan said. So in your subconscious, you did hear me say those things, like a tongue twister. March gave an awkward laugh. Haha, honestly, when I heard the diviner's deep theories before, I never quite understood them. Enough joking. This isn't the time to sulk. Fushuan's tone grew serious. If this deduced experience is distorted, we'll focus on identifying and correcting each source of distortion. Otherwise, we can't reliably retrace your past. March put on a mock-wise expression. This is getting complicated. My head hurts. Ino, can you give a simpler explanation? If the system's glitching, it's probably a bug, Ino said. Find the illogical parts in this memory. What is it? March asked. Ino's brow tightened. I can almost be certain your memory loss was man-made. Someone personally sealed or erased your past memories. Who would do such a thing? March whispered. I don't know, Ino admitted. When I tried to corrupt data within this memory, I ran into resistance. The problem is tied to a relatively important person in the current scene. My ability, it failed again on a machine, Ino continued, voice low. The entity that tampered with your memory is probably at least an emissary. An emissary, at least, March repeated, incredulous. What kind of existence is that? So, do you still want to continue? Fushuan asked. March hesitated, then squared her shoulders. Yes, if that's the case, I want to know more about what I've lost. In that case, we'll have to use a process of elimination, Fushuan said. How do we start? March asked. Fushuan pointed at her projection. Come, draw your bow, knock an arrow, and shoot that Fushuan. March did as told. The moment her arrow struck the projected Fushuan, it twisted and became a monstrous shape that lunged at her. She started back, surprised. Ino raised a single finger toward the creature and it crumbled to dust instantly. My authority isn't unrestricted, she said. It has to operate within certain rules. Fushuan sighed with relief. That really startled me. Suddenly a fight broke out. Let's see, Miss Tingyun, Uncle Yang, General Jingyuan, and also Star. Am I going to have to fight them all one by one? With Ino here, though, she could just kill them instantly. Fushuan glanced at Ino. To avoid influencing her judgment, we should withdraw our projections for now. We can still communicate with her and protect her without those extras. The projections faded quickly. March smiled. The diviner is still thoughtful. Fushuan offered a small grin. I hope I can replace that brilliant image of a celebrated nonsense performance artist you have of me in your heart. March 7th approached the star in her memory. Oh, what a coincidence. You're here too. The star was silent. It's fine if you don't normally talk much, but this is my memory, my territory. You could at least say something to me. Something, the star answered. March 7th froze. That left me speechless. She was about to turn away when the star in her memory spoke again, low and urgent. Do not recall. It will not benefit you. Did you hear that? Why is she suddenly saying such strange things? Fushuan's projection, hovering behind her, spoke up. This proves that the person who made you lose your memory is trying to stop you from recalling. Find the one who shouldn't be here, but is here, and this memory should restore itself. Shouldn't be here, but is here. Wait, shouldn't General Jing Yuan have been at Scale Gorge Waterscape at that time? Why would he be in the medical market? They moved through the memory until they found Jing Yuan, standing and apparently asleep. Fushuan snorted. Although people call him the closed-eyed general, this is clearly your subconscious being dramatic. Before March 7th could respond, Jing Yuan opened his eyes. You scared me. Why did you wake up all of a sudden? Are you not satisfied with your life now? March 7th asked. I know. I'm quite satisfied, he said. Then why keep looking back at the past? As the memory Jing Yuan spoke, he raised his weapon and lashed out at her. Ino intervened instantly and destroyed him. When Jing Yuan disintegrated, something unexpected materialized where he had been, a small, glowing heater. Huh? What's this? I've never seen one of these on the Luofu. It shouldn't be in the medical market either. Fu Xuan leaned forward to inspect. I know that. That's a Belobog heater, but why would a Belobog heater be in the medical market? March 7th frowned. It looks like a component from another experience leaked into this one, an intrusive foreign object. The matrix of prescience is eliminating interference. It must have traced back another one of your experiences. Let's tap it and see if we can jump into that experience. March 7th hesitated. I've never touched a heater before. It's glowing red. If I put my hand on it, my delicate skin might turn golden and crispy. It's memory space, Fuan said. As long as you weren't burned by it in reality, the heater can't actually harm you here. But Fu Xuan's projection reappeared behind her and, with zero ceremony, shoved her hand onto the heater. Less talk, touch it. Hey, don't pull my hand. Hot, hot, hot. March 7th yelped as she grabbed the heater. The sensation flared and the world folded. She landed in Belobog. Oh my God, this is burning me to death. You said something that didn't happen in reality wouldn't burn me. I said you wouldn't be burned, not that you wouldn't feel the heat, Fu Xuan replied. If the concept of hot exists in your memory, your sensations will be filled in. This is Belobog. March 7th glanced around at the snow and ruined buildings. I remember seeing that name in the Star Dome archives. There used to be a lot of planets on the Shanzhou trade routes, until the Antimatter Legion appeared and many lost contact. Yes, Belobog is a snowbound terminal city. Heaters like that are everywhere. Without them, people couldn't live there. I don't feel the cold, March 7th added, rubbing her arms. Probably because I've never been somewhere truly bitter. I guess the Matrix fills in cold from other experiences. Diviner, where's Ino? Nothing's happened to her, has it? You're worrying for no reason. Miss Ino is at her element inside the Matrix. If she's not visible here, she's probably off looking for other ways to help. A translucent interface materialized in front of them. Skip current story? Oh, March 7th laughed. Only Ino would add a skip button. She clicked it without hesitation. The Belobog scene vanished and a cold, sterile stretch replaced it. Herta space station. But when she looked to her side, Fu Xuan was gone. She called for the projection. There was no answer. Maybe Ino got punished by the backend for helping me skip a level, March 7th muttered. What kind of backend could punish her? Well, looks like I'm on my own. She kept walking through the memory and encountered Arlen. He didn't wait for her to speak. He launched straight into an explanation. March 7th, even if you look back, you'll find only a turbulent, ever-changing past. You are the sole survivor of the Jewel World Adlafon, the last princess. The moment Nanook ascended, that star was incinerated into an obsidian hell. Your parents, desperate, placed you, an infant, into an icebound vessel and watched you disappear into the vast, turbulent waves of the Star Dome Sea. You were found and raised by unknown hands. You are the last hope, the promise of rebirth. March 7th planted her hands on her hips, annoyed. Isn't this the backstory I made up for myself in a novel? Damn it, it even dug up my own imagination. Arlen's memory dissolved. March 7th moved on and found Asta. March, don't you remember your adventures? The longbow at your side is proof. You were once a sea ranger. You and your companions fought the remnants of the swarm. You saved a world that nearly fell into a black hole in Emerald. You shattered Dr. Primitive's carefully woven conspiracy. In the battle at Ovak, you were gravely wounded. To protect you, the leader of the righteous sealed you in ice, waiting for you to recover. This time she couldn't help laughing. Really? The bow? That was made for me by Sister Himeko. This lie is too clumsy. Only the Herta puppet remained. Its voice was calm and certain. March 7th, you were a member of the Astral Express Nameless. After being found by Himeko, you were freed from the six-phase ice that imprisoned you, and you lost all your memories. You lost your memories because you had no past to speak of. You were once an Aeon. Aeons do not have pasts. When they ascend, their past and future are consumed by their path. March 7th, your mistake was losing the authority that belongs to a god. This is getting more and more ridiculous. So now I'm Idrilla? No. Ouroboros? A few records about the Aeon of Veracity flashed through March 7th's mind. She shook her head. No. Why am I being led astray by false memories? There was no one else in the scene. I'll just keep going. At that moment, Ino stands on an endless ice plain. Directly in front of her is a figure in white whose face is hidden behind a blue mask. Please don't let her continue to retrace the past. Let her leave the matrix of prescience and return to reality. Her past is not worth exploring. The result will only hurt her. Who are you? I am an emissary of the Garden of Recollection, Miss Ino. Please stop. The Garden of Recollection? I didn't expect that even memories simulated by the matrix of prescience, memories that might not be accurate, could be interfered with so easily by a pathstrider of memory. Since the Garden of Recollection is so powerful, you should understand our original intent. Not only have you cut off Fushuan's observation, you're trying every means to block my erosion. Simply saying you're protecting March 7th isn't enough to convince me. And, with this attitude, I'm even more curious. What exactly happened to March 7th before she was frozen? No, please do not attempt to delve into more memories. Trust me. Please trust me. It will do no good. Events from earlier hold no meaning for her. The value of her life lies not in what happened in the past, but in the present and the future. An eagle in flight does not long for the cliff it once fell from. A sailing ship does not yearn for the strait where it ran aground. The past, to her, is like mist. Ino's fingers curl into a fist. Are you really a memo keeper of the Garden of Recollection? You're not an enigmata riddle speaker in disguise, are you? I am a memo keeper, but I truly cannot say more. Please believe me, I am doing this for her own good. The memo keeper had expected resistance. According to the Garden's records, among so many geniuses, No. 85 usually has a good temper and is understanding. Why is she suddenly so angry? You. Ino's voice rises. Why do you think sealing March 7th's memories is for her good? A person's memories are an important part of their soul. You keep saying her value is in the future, but if a person has no past, how can she have a future? Erasing someone's past is like cutting a kite's string at the start. No matter how high it flies, it will eventually fall. Arbitrarily altering another's memory under the guise of protection, that's murder. The memo keeper looks taken aback. Even if restoring a person's memories would cause her immense pain. Even if it causes immense pain, it's proof she existed in this world. It is part of her true self. One can only move from the present into the future by carrying a past. Besides, precisely because I know nothing of March 7th's earlier memories, who are you to decide they must be bad for her? The memo keeper breathes out. Miss Ino, you make a valid point. We understand that protecting someone by confinement is fraught with problems. Ino's anger softens at that, but we have no better way. Once she knows those memories, it might not help her. In fact, it could very likely harm others. Is that acceptable? After a pause, she looks at the memo keeper again, her tone quieter. So your way of protecting March 7th is to hope my morals are strong enough? You've argued with me at length here, yet you haven't used force, not because you don't want to, but because you can't. If I decide to pursue her past regardless of her safety, you simply cannot stop me. As a memo keeper, you know how precious a memory sealed by an emissary or even an aeon can be. You're right. If you were determined to use force to pry into her past, I genuinely couldn't stop you. I don't even have the ability to enforce mutual destruction. But according to the Garden's knowledge, your conscience would not allow you to do that. We're not trying to moralize. If you leave now, the Garden of Recollection will offer a gift as a token of our gratitude. A gift? There's no need to hide it. We know you're researching differences between various paths. Others before you have studied this as well. After you leave, you'll receive a memory bubble. Touch it, and you'll gain access to the relevant research materials. Also, while I cannot allow her to view memories from before she was frozen, I can permit memories from the starting point onward, such as the scene when she was discovered by other Nameless. Please believe the Garden of Recollection does not wish to be your enemy. Since you, like a memo keeper, can view and store memories, the Garden hopes to cooperate with you. Ino finally understands the memo keeper is not an enemy, but she hesitates. She glances at Alicia. Alicia watches her with the same calm gentleness, remaining silent. She knows her opinion would sway Ino, so she lets Ino choose for herself. I understand. Ino's shape dissolves from the ice plane. The memo keeper exhales in relief. Elsewhere, March 7th, still circling the memories of Herta Space Station, watches the Astral Express crew discover her. Himeko says, "What's sealing that child looks like ice, but it doesn't have the physical properties of ordinary ice. It's strange. These crystals show at least 6 crystalline phases under different conditions, 6-phase ice. The galaxy is truly an unfathomable place." Welt replies, "Of course I hope we can take her in. Even basic morality points to the same conclusion. Since we found her, we must take care of her. Still, I worry about whether that choice will bring trouble to the Astral Express." Pom Pom chirps, "The Astral Express welcomes everyone, Pom. Don't worry, just make the right choice now, and Pom Pom will take responsibility for whatever comes after." Welt smiles a little. "With you saying that, I feel a bit better. I just hope she can live comfortably on the train and not be frightened by our oddities." Pom Pom bounces. "Don't worry, Pom. Pom Pom already said it. The Astral Express welcomes everyone, Pom." The memory ended there, and March 7th found herself back at the Divination Commission with Fushuan and Ino by her side. "Ino, you're really okay. Where did you go just now?" March asked. Ino explained what had happened with the memo keeper. Could my past be connected to the emissary of memory, or even Fuli, the Aeon of memory, she asked. "We shouldn't jump to conclusions," Fushuan said. "All we can say is that an Aeon probably sealed your memory, but it might not have been Fuli. The protection the emissary mentioned suggests Fuli intervened to stop you from being harmed by your sealed memories. Recovering your memory may be beyond the matrix of prescience's capabilities." "I'm just so grateful Diviner Fushuan is willing to help," Ino replied. "By the way," Fushuan continued, "the matrix of prescience shut down earlier. If there's nothing else, I need to assemble a team to inspect and repair it. If the matrix is damaged, I'd be devastated." "Ah, March and I will go ahead then," Ino said. "If it was only a program glitch, I should be able to fix it quickly. I don't want the Express stuck with a huge repair bill." That memo keeper clearly had no intention of being an enemy of Luofu. After Ino intervened, the matrix of prescience resumed operations within minutes. "Miss Ino, thank you. Without your help, the entire Divination Commission would probably have been working overtime for days," Fushuan said. "Forgive my bluntness, but there are many factions within the Garden of Recollection. The memo keeper who protected Miss March 7th likely doesn't represent the Garden's official stance. Unlike the Shanzhou Alliance, the Garden of Recollection doesn't have a single, unified group of memo keepers," he explained. "Fuli's emissaries have split into many factions because they interpret memory differently. Miss Ino, if you deal with them in the future, be cautious." "I understand. Thank you for letting me know, Diviner," Ino said. She left the Divination Commission, found a quiet corner, leaned against the wall, and sank her consciousness inward. Inside, Alicia's presence pressed close to her back. "Ino must have a lot to tell me right now, right?" Alicia purred. "Aye," Ino began. Alicia's presence tightened against her. "Don't rush. Take your time. Whatever you need to say, I'll listen." Ino gave up resisting. Alicia seemed to mold around her, hands on her shoulders, pulling, lowering the angle of her head until she felt tucked into a comfortable hollow. "Ugh, this is so soft," she muttered, blushing at Alicia's pronounced curves. She tried to get up, but 2 hands gently held her in place. "Is it uncomfortable?" Alicia asked. "No," Ino said. "Good. I'm confident in my figure," Alicia said, delighted. "Eli, Ino started. Alicia encouraged. "Today, for the first time, I wondered whether the things you say, the ideas you support, are always right," Ino admitted. "Because of that memo keeper?" Alicia asked. "So what's your current conclusion?" I don't know," Ino sighed. "After I was reborn, my greatest wish was to fulfill your wishes, Eli. I believed all your ideas could make the world better. But now, in specific situations, maybe they're not entirely correct." "Maybe I don't fully understand my own philosophy either," Alicia said quietly. "The events in the Elysian realm made me realize that memory is the foundation of the true self," Ino continued. If someone is missing most of their memories, their cognition and behavior change drastically. They're no longer the same person. But if someone has a complete true self, their unconscious actions might end up harming others or even destroying a planet or a star system. Sometimes only by missing parts of themselves, by forgetting who they were, can a region remain stable and safe. If that's the case, should we still help them recover their full memory? I can't answer that for you either, Alicia said softly. No Alicia has encountered a situation like March 7th's, so I can't give you a definitive solution. Maybe you haven't noticed, but your knowledge base is already larger than mine, Alicia added. It's normal for you to think independently and come up with a better answer than I would. Looked up and met Alicia's warm smile. She made a quiet decision. When she returned to the present, a message from March 7th was waiting. Come to my room right away. I found something incredible. Dashed back to the express. At March 7th's door, she saw a rectangular object floating in her hand. I checked my pocket and found this, March 7th said, showing it off. This looks like a light cone. They say even Miss Herta can't decipher the tech for making light cones. Whoever gave this to me must be that memo keeper. It's sealed with my origin inside. Somehow I feel like they didn't mean any harm. Inside the light cone, a naked March 7th was frozen in hexagonal ice, eyes closed. Where's Stella? She should be here for something like this, March 7th said. She put the light cone away and pulled her phone toward I already messaged her. See what she replied. On the screen, March 7th. Are you there? No, I'm Pom-Pom. I think she sounds exactly like a pom-pom, March observed. That is exactly the sort of reply Stella would give, said, amused. In any case, our opinions of her line up perfectly, March said, smiling helplessly. Scrolled further through the messages and found a new one explaining why Stella wasn't present. She was in Belobog. As soon as I returned to the express, Brownia messaged, March explained. She's preparing for the Soulworm Festival. It's a traditional Belobog holiday. Celebrations were suspended for years because of the fragmentum and lockdown. People there haven't felt a festival atmosphere in a long time. Bronia wants us to come to Belobog and join the festivities, March said. You only told us about it, protested. I don't have to go, do I? Hey, that's not fair, March teased. You were the biggest contributor to the Trailblaze in Belobog back then. We can't do it without you. All right, relented. Yay, I'll leave once I've packed up, March said, already buzzing with plans. Sometime later, and March 7th reunited with Stella on the snow-covered plains outside the city. Oh, Stella, you managed to get everything you needed? How did you pack so fast? Asked. Stella put her hands on her hips and raised an eyebrow. Because all my relics have speed substats. What are you even talking about? Began, then changed the subject. By the way, before I left I skimmed Uncle Yang's observation records. Compared to our first Trailblaze mission, the average surface temperature of that planet has warmed quite a bit. Still not exactly livable, March 7th said, but it's starting to improve. I'm really happy for Bronia and Seal. And Stella shared a look. They weren't as visibly excited, but they didn't want to burst March 7th's bubble. When March 7th skipped off ahead, they fell in after her. They had walked a little farther when 3 figures in black uniforms slipped out from behind a snowdrift. There are 3 strangers. Shall we silence them? One asked. The man beside him immediately slapped him. Idiot. The one on the left is Miss the genius who cracked the anti-organic equation. If you're tired of living, don't drag the rest of us down. She's Miss Another muttered, staring. Now that you say it, she does look like the photo. What should we do? Report to Director Topaz, the first answered without hesitation. When they entered Belobog, the festival atmosphere hit them. The streets were far more crowded than the last time they'd been here. Wow, it's packed. Is this the Belobog I remember? Stella, come with me, the plaza, March 7th urged. They rounded a corner and spotted a man in splendid clothes surrounded by people. Isn't that Hualaos up front? He's surrounded. Has he finally made friends? March 7th whispered. They edged closer to listen. Hualaos's expression was anything but pleased. Norbert, why don't you tell everyone how you managed to get out so fast? Smuggling relics, impersonating Silvermane guards, those all sound like serious crimes. Norbert looked sheepish. That's thanks to my uncle, really. Oh, Minister Noir's nephew, right? Head of the Ministry of Transportation? The man on Hualaus's other side said with a satisfied grin. Roxy, you actually know that? Norbert asked, startled. Roxy winced. No kidding. You have some nerve this time. If I messed up and landed in the slammer, I'd be too ashamed to have my dad bail me out. I didn't want to end up there, Norbert protested. I was just trying to make some money for my family. I suffered for it. There are so many troublemakers in Belobog, yet they picked me to meet the quota. Hualaus, you know me. If they hadn't arrested me, would Belobog really be worse off? Hard to say, Hualaus replied. I went through hell in there, and now that I'm out, you're squeezing me? What kind of friends are you? Norbert snapped. Eno, Stella, and March 7th exchanged looks. They're about to argue, Stella said. We should probably head off. Pella's over by the Everwinter Monument. Let's find her. Pella was exactly as they remembered, animated, telling stories to a circle of children in front of the monument. Next, Sister Pella will introduce the museum's history. Listen closely. The Belobog History and Culture Museum was founded 600 years ago to commemorate the first Supreme Guardian, Alicia Rand. Murmurs rippled through the kids. I'm so hungry. I want sunset fish sashimi. But I heard the sunset fish sashimi already sold out. What? Pella cleared her throat and continued. It was to honor the first Supreme Guardian, Alicia Rand. And also, did you hear? There's going to be a Silvermane Guards experience camp in the overworld later. I heard it's supposed to be fun. No thanks. Being a Silvermane Guard sounds exhausting. I'd rather stay home. So you'll just lie around forever? No idea. But I'll never be like my dad, working, you know? I'll never work. I've got it. If I don't become a Silvermane Guard, I can get arrested by them and go to the slammer. Huh? But Mom says if you get arrested and thrown in the slammer, you did something really bad. That's just something your mom made up to make you do your homework. The slammer's full of geniuses who are great at talking, and those who sacrificed themselves in the war against the invaders 700 years ago. Hey, Peter, wake up. Don't sleep. Sister Pella's watching you. What? Is it dinner time? Pella tried to ignore the chatter and press on with her lesson, but the kids' whispers kept pulling her attention. Finally, she snapped. Enough. From now on, no more whispering. I've taught a lot of groups, and you lot are the rowdiest. If I hear another sound, you'll copy all of today's homework. Silence fell instantly. Pella softened. That's better. Ahem, where were we? Let's continue. Pella's got a temper, March 7th murmured. Probably best not to mess with her. Oh, look over there. Serval's about to perform. Serval checked her instrument one last time and climbed onto a slightly raised platform. Quiet, everyone. Don't push. Performance starting. The crowd hushed, anticipation buzzing. Serval began to sing. Fading signals, strings ignited by sound waves, electric currents making you scream aloud, noisy heartbeats, prohibitions quickly expiring, volume doubled, breaking all seals, a lightning storm covering alarms, no escape. Let's roar together. How do you like it, Eno? Someone nearby asked playfully. Compared to Ruan Mei, Serval is a bit wilder, Eno said. Not bad, though. Eily, which do you prefer? Ruan Mei's melodies are soothing, Serval's are more passionate, but both feel a little lacking in liveliness. If Eily went on stage, she might not be an international superstar like Eden. No, on this stage it'd be cosmic level. But Eily could probably become a cosmic level idol. That would be easy. Eno gets me, Eily said with a smile. If we ever drift apart, forming a group and debuting wouldn't be a bad idea. Beautiful, cute girls like us would grab the whole galaxy's attention. That, I think I'll pass. Miss Eno pictured herself on stage with Alicia. She loved Alicia's company, but Alicia's abilities meant performing under the gaze of billions across civilizations. The weight of public opinion alone was suffocating. Fear flared before she could think of the upside. With the erosion's power to sway public sentiment, she might not be the most outstanding idol, but she would be the most beloved. Even the company's publicity machine couldn't match that. Still, she shook her head. Hey, Eno. March 7th waved a hand in front of her until she looked up. There isn't anything dangerous nearby, is there? No, I was just thinking about something else. Phew, March 7th relaxed. Seeing that tense look on your face, I thought Belobog had a hidden lord of destruction, Look, Aunt Goldie's sun pancakes are coming out of the oven. Star deftly squeezed through the crowd and in no time had a warm sun pancake in each of their hands. You were amazing getting through so many people, March 7th said. Heh, it's a skill I honed while treasure hunting, in the trash can. Star grinned. March 7th's quick hands shoved a pancake into Star's mouth. We're about to eat, best not to talk with our mouths full. She handed the last pancake, hers, over to Miss Eno and bit into the one she'd kept. Wow, it smells great, crispy and crunchy, but a bit too sweet. Miss Eno took a small bite. Her verdict matched March 7th's. There's nothing solar about it. Why is it called a sun pancake? You should have asked Aunt Goldie, Star said. After you left Belobog, Aunt Goldie told us, the more people lack something, the more they long for it. During the blockade between the upper and underworld, the underworld folk longed to see the sun again, so they named this the sun pancake. Now that the wish has been fulfilled, the name stuck. They finished their pancakes and soon ran into Gepard, leading a patrol of Silvermane guards. Ta-da! Captain Gepard, look who's back! March 7th called cheerfully. March, Star, and Miss Eno, welcome back to Belobog. Gepard bowed slightly. The Supreme Guardian said a mysterious guest would be coming for the Solstice Festival. Didn't expect she meant the Astral Express crew. Thank you for coming. I hope your journey was smooth. It's my failing I didn't send Silvermane guards to meet you. Don't worry about it, March 7th waved him off. We're only passing through to look around. No need to make a fuss. Understood. Enjoy the festival, but be careful. Pickpockets love crowds. Guard your things, and if anything happens, contact me or the stationed guards. We will. We won't get in your way. See you later. They strolled through the administrative district until March 7th's initial excitement wore thin. She yawned. I'm tired. I didn't think wandering could be so exhausting. Oh, shouldn't we go see Bronya? She sent the invitation. Or we could wander somewhere else, depending on what you want. Miss Eno and Star agreed, and they headed for Qliphoth Fort. At the gate, besides the Silvermane guards, stood a squad in black uniforms carrying weapons that looked far more advanced. Are those company people? Star whispered. Is the Interstellar Peace Corporation here? Am I hallucinating? Which company else would bring gear like that? March 7th said. Let's go ask. Despite her social awkwardness, March 7th marched right up to the nearest black uniformed person. Hi, excuse me, are you with the Interstellar Peace Corporation, or is this cosplay? The guard, more an official than a soldier, gave them a cool look. We are employees of the Interstellar Peace Corporation. Who are you? I'm March 7th, passenger on the Astral Express. You've heard of us, right? Oh, the man glanced at the group and nodded. That explains why you don't look local. We're from the Strategic Investment Department, accompanying Director Topaz to Jarilo V6 for a special meeting. March 7th's eyes widened. So Director Topaz is here, meeting with Bronya in Qliphoth Fort? That's right. Would it be bad for us to go in now? Another employee who had been standing nearby winked and answered for him. Director Topaz is punctual. From what I gather, the meeting's almost over. You won't be interrupting anything if you go in now. All right, then we'll go. Miss Eno hesitated, eyeing the company employees for a beat longer before she and March 7th entered Qliphoth Fort. Inside, Director Topaz sat across from the Supreme Guardian. Topaz stroked a small creature, Numby, that was curled on her lap. I completely understand the predicament of your star, Supreme Guardian, Topaz said, voice smooth. Belobog's current financial strain isn't your fault, nor is it the fault of your people. But objectively, because Belobog has remained an independent entity, that debt can't simply be written off as bad credit. Bronya, the Supreme Guardian, listened with a tight expression. Topaz cleared her throat. If Jarilo V6 wants to reestablish contact with the Star Dome in the future, the company will judge that on a formal credit record. Please consider my proposal carefully. I understand, Director Topaz. I'll need time to think it over. Of course. Topaz rose. My colleagues will also need to conduct some necessary operations in Belobog while you consider it. I hope the people of the upper and underworld will cooperate. I'm sorry to have interrupted your reunion with old friends for business. She glanced toward the doorway as more arrivals were seen entering. Our official business is concluded. Please, catch up with your guests. I'll be taking my leave. See you. With that, Topaz and her team filed out, leaving Bronia and the Astral Express crew to finally reconnect. 100. Chapter's True Purpose. Topaz, holding Numby, hurried out of Klipoth Fort. Bronia sank into a chair and drew a long, ragged breath. Exhaustion showed in every line of her face. Bronia, are you all right? That person just now was Topaz, right? She's so forceful. I thought she'd be easy to talk to at first glance, Star said. Star, March 7th, Miss Eno, welcome back. I'm sorry, I wanted to give you a proper welcome, but that woman, the one who claimed to be an envoy of the corporation, appeared out of nowhere and threw everything off. Since it's just the three of you, there's nothing to hide. Honestly, I don't have the energy to think about the Warm Sun Festival right now. What exactly did Topaz say to you? March 7th asked. Bronia sighed deeply. The first time you came to Belobog, you must have heard some of its history. The Legion's invasion over 700 years ago, the cold wave born from the Stellaron. It seems many important events after that were buried under the snow, and those memories weren't always passed down by the Supreme Guardians. Miss Topaz told me a story. 700 years ago, after the Stellaron fell on Jarilo 6, the outsiders stationed here saw the crisis coming and chose to leave. Among them were investors from the Interstellar Peace Corporation. Before they left, they did something significant. They found the architects, who insisted on staying to defend their homeland, and gave them a large sum for disaster prevention. With that money, Belobog was able to build those high city walls. Even the R&D funds for the first batch of automatons came from that investment. There was such a thing, Star exclaimed. So, could Topaz be here to collect a debt? Precisely, Bronia said. March 7th's expression turned indignant. This is outrageous. Why now, of all times? If we hadn't eliminated the Stellaron, wouldn't this debt have been written off? This is clearly bullying. According to Topaz, the repayment period the architects agreed to with the corporation investors was 280 years. But less than a century after the loan, Jarilo 6 was completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. The corporation assumed the world had been catastrophically damaged and that the investment was a bad debt. It wasn't until the Stellaron crisis was resolved that they discovered Belobog had survived. So they sent Topaz to collect the principal and the interest. Principal and interest? After 700 years, wouldn't that be dozens or hundreds of times the original amount? Star asked. Bronia hesitated, and then Eno stepped forward. March, it wouldn't just be dozens or hundreds of times. With the corporation's financial methods, they'd use compound interest. Interest compounding on interest. She walked to Bronia's desk and sketched a formula with a pencil. F equals P1 plus I squared N. I is the interest rate. N is the number of years. I don't know how much the corporation lent 700 years ago or what the exact rate was, but by their own lending standards, a daily interest rate as low as 0.067%, that is, 0.0067 per day, isn't considered usury. Even if they followed their rules back then and Jarilo 6's year equals 365 standard days, if the architects had borrowed just one credit point 700 years ago, the amount now would be 1 times 1 plus 0.00067, 700 times 365, which is approximately 2.08 times 1074. That means Belobog would be expected to repay on the order of 1074 credits, March 7th said numbly. No matter how much the original loan was, 700 years of compounding makes it an astronomical figure. Bronia glanced at the bill Topaz had handed her and let out another heavy sigh. Exactly. I don't even know how to pronounce that number. Before you came in, Topaz warned me, if the debt is overdue for too long, the corporation has authorized her to take firm measures. I don't know the Interstellar Peace Corporation as well as some of you, but if the records in the old texts are right, it's a colossal organization spanning the galaxy. They'd have the means to crush Belobog if they chose, Star said. So I'm very glad you're here. I know you three only came to attend the festival, but I have to ask for the Astral Express's help. Can you try to persuade Topaz for me? With the Astral Express's reputation across the stars. March 7th, having just rebooted, was about to agree, but Eno stopped her. Bronia, you don't need to panic like this. After 700 years of compound interest, the debt is effectively impossible to repay. A bad debt. The corporation and Topaz know that, just as well as we do. So the debt collection may just be an excuse to pressure Belobog. There's probably another objective. According to records from other factions on the corporation, there are many ways they bring planets into their economic system. Besides direct armed occupation, they could, for example, mass-produce fake Winter City shields and undermine Belobog's financial stability. That's terrifying. Star's voice was tight. If Topaz tries to use writing off the debt as a condition to make Belobog sign an unequal treaty, we're in real danger. We need to act fast. Eno pulled March 7th back. No, that would only be Topaz's secondary objective. If you and Star go after her now, you can't avoid a clash between the corporation and Belobog. That would play right into their hands. Why? Bronya asked. Because their primary reason for being here is likely to probe how important Gerilo V6 really is to the corporation. They're testing our defenses, our resolve, and the planet's strategic value. If you intervene prematurely, you'll force a confrontation before we understand what they truly want. Not long after, the corporation's forces moved. They occupied the Great Mine, and Gepard, leading the Silvermane Guards and a squad of automata, advanced and surrounded Topaz and her people in Rivet Town. Topaz examined the formation. This doesn't look friendly. No wonder people say the debtor sometimes ends up being the boss, she muttered, almost amused. She drew a small device and began entering the source code of the nearby automatons, intending to seize control of them. Huh? In an instant, the device in her hand went dead. The input frozen as a counterprogram neutralized her code. Topaz's surprise blinked into a small, wry smile. It seems that Genius values Gerilo quite a lot, she said.